and thank you for joining us. This is No Soundbites Allowed, and I am your host, Michael Voss. Dragon of the Southern Tier, I'm happy to be here with you again. It is Sunday, August 28th of 2022, 2:30 p.m., and we are here live with you. Every Sunday at 2:30 p.m., we reach out across the world to hear what you have to say about the issues that are affecting us all. I'm hoping this is going to be a great episode. I look forward to hearing comments from everyone, even people who disagree. And you will be able to reach us at 607-242-1582. Matter of fact, give me 1 second. Just want to make sure that our phone line is on and working for you. Yep. There we go. Sorry. There's always something you forget to do. And what I have forgotten to do is to turn on the phone. The phone is on 607-242-1582. You can also reach us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, DLive to let us know what you think about the issues that are affecting us all. With that said, there's so many things that are going on right now. We have the anniversary of Afghanistan that is coming up, the retreat, the quote, great rescue, if you listen to the Biden administration, but in fact, the rout of American forces. And 1 year later, what is the consequence? What impact is that having on our lives? Because it is. And let's also talk about inflation. The latest news that we have heard about the inflation, the recession that is going to affect not only every American, but everyone around the world. What's going to happen? We spoke to an economist, Mr. Richard Vedder, talking about this recently this week, and we are going to tell you a little bit about what he said and what's going to be happening going forward. I want to talk about the Iran nuclear deal. Are you safe? Will this make you safer, or is this just a gimmick for the 2022 midterm elections that will not help you at all? Plus, what's been happening with the Second Amendment in our nation? So many things to talk about. Hello, Jen. It is good to see you here. Thank you for being the first person to comment. So there is a ton of stuff that we really need to talk about here, folks. And I want to ask this question as honestly as I can. How many Americans, how much inflation, how little freedom is left in America versus just 1 year ago? Or we could look at the last 18 months. How much has America changed? And in changing, how has the world changed? Because I would beg to say that America is much worse off, that our freedoms are much more curtailed, that we are in a worse position, and it is deteriorating as we speak. There is a lot of spin going on right now, telling you that the world is fine, that the economy is doing fantastic. You just don't understand. That, don't worry about energy costs because green energy will take care of it eventually. That you're going to be safe because we have to take away all those nasty guns, except criminals don't care about the laws. We're looking at police forces across this country that are standing down, leaving you at risk. My God, how much is going to happen and how badly is it going to affect you? I hope to hear your comments about this because whether you agree or disagree, I think your voice is important. The First Amendment isn't just an American right. It is a right for everyone around the world. And even if your governments don't agree, even the internet overlords don't agree, we want to hear what you have to say. Tina says, they are even saying Biden has a lot of accomplishments and he is on a roll. They are delusional. That would be CNN, MSNBC, ABC, CBS, the major news media who have a vested interest. They have a political agenda. They have admitted this, as we have shown you on this channel months and months over, that and each and every poll, each and every study done of the American news media and the global news media, they are left-leaning. They have an objective here. They want to make the world more progressive, no matter the cost to you. And that's a problem. Jan mentions we are in such a bad state that I'm afraid there will be no coming back. I don't know that we're in that bad a state yet. but we are definitely getting there. And we need to take steps. The first step is knowledge. It's information. It's having a conversation. Because America is built on the idea that we, the people, are involved. We control our government, which means that we need to talk about our government. We need to talk about our politics and our policies because we control this government. Not the internet overlords, not the news media, and definitely not the elected officials who want to today think of themselves as neo-nobles, telling us what they decide and what we have to live with, even as they live with something different. I'll give you a great example of that. How about Cori Bush? Representative Cori Bush, who represents Minneapolis. She makes about 5 times as much money, $175,000 a year without any federal taxes that she makes. She has student loans. She has come out this week and told her constituents and the American people that you are responsible for paying off her college loans. Not $10,000, not $20,000 or $50,000, that you should pay off her loans. She is in the top 1% of the nation. She is in one of the top incomes. She spends $70,000 a year just to give herself a private security. Mind you, she believes in defunding the police. She's a landlord who gets $100,000 a year, but also says that every other landlord shouldn't be able to increase their rent, that they should have reductions and people should live free in houses except the ones that she owns. You don't have the right to be able to defend yourself with a bulletproof vest or by owning a firearm, but she gets to spend your money to pay for a private security to protect her, and you don't get a choice in that. We need to defund the police, according to Representative Cori Bush. And now she is telling people who make 1/5 or less than what she makes that they have to pay off her student loans? Does that make sense to anyone? Dow, good to see you with us. And by the way, Tina, I'm happy to hear from you as well. Dow says, so many great accomplishments that anybody that naysays is a Debbie Downer and should leave the state. The fact is, we need to be honest with each other. And the honest answers are, there is nothing that you can point at in the Biden-Harris administration under the White House, the Congress that is controlled by Democrats, both in the House of Representatives and the Senate. Please try to point to one thing they have done that has been a net positive for this nation. They have increased inflation. They have increased spending, further increasing inflation. They have destabilized the safety of the world. We are looking to increase global terror funded by the United States, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. There isn't anything that has been done right, and we will go into that. And if you disagree, we are always happy to hear what you have to say. Yes, and we have people like appointed Governor Kathy Hochul copying the disgraced former governor of New York, Andrew Cuomo, saying that if you don't agree, if you have a different point of view, well, you should leave the state. Guess what? They have been in record numbers. New York State has led the country for a decade in people running away because it is a failed state, just like California. And they think that that's perfectly fine. Well, no, it's not, because it's been destroying New York State and hurting the nation as a whole. I will get into all of that. Let me start off with something really simple, okay? And I want to keep this as a somewhat of a theme for the entire show. So here we are. This is from Ted Cruz, but the important thing is what the press secretary of the White House has said. What MAGA Republicans have done, and you look at the definition of fascism, and you think about what they're doing in attacking our democracy, taking away our freedoms, wanting to take away our rights, that is what that is. It's very clear. Can you think about this for a second? This is what they are telling us. The Democrats, the Democratic Party, the progressives in the Democratic Party want to take your money to pay off their debt. The progressives and Democrats in Congress want to take away your Second Amendment right with H.R. 1808, amongst many other bills, that says that you do not have a right to defend your home. You do not have a right to protect yourself. In New York State, amongst other states, you do not have the right to passively defend yourself with a bulletproof vest. It is a crime because they want to take away your right to defend yourself. Let's see. Does that sound right? It is the White House that is working in conjunction with states like New York and California and the internet overlords that say that you cannot speak freely, that they want to increase the amount of censorship run by the government to silence you, that they want to create disinformation governance boards, either officially through the government or unofficially in relationships with the internet overlords, to decide whether what you say is allowed and approved. And yet, wait a minute, Republicans are the problem. MAGA is the problem. Make America great again, Republicans. America First Republicans are the bad guys, according to the press secretary of the United States. That if you believe in an America First policy, which every single American should want. I don't care if you're a progressive. I don't care if you're conservative, libertarian. You could be part of the Green Party, which is straight up communist, and you would want an America First policy. Why? Because it's your home. Do you want to think of your home as the least important thing in your life? That is the thing that you should pay the least attention to? I don't know anyone in any country, anywhere in the world, that would say they want to think about their country last, that it is the least important factor in their lives. That is stupid. That is insulting. And that is a manipulation of propaganda. That is trying to convince you of something that is just not real. Let me go back to some of the comments here. Cool Roy says that MAGA patriots are the opposite of fascists and we despise big government fascism. I agree. People who believe in America First don't believe in fascism. They're not trying to take away your rights. We're trying to keep the ones we already have. That's pretty straightforward. Jan says they are using these as excuses to disarm Americans in order to gain total control. They know as long as Americans are armed, they have no chance. Well, we've seen that governments around the world, like in World War II, have stated the biggest defense that America has is that every American is armed. And therefore, no one would dare want to invade America because behind every blade of grass is an American with a rifle. That is one of our great strengths as opposed to anywhere else in the world. The American military, if you're really thinking about it, defined by the Second Amendment, is every single American. Which is why we are so well protected and also so hated, because other governments cannot simply just topple the politics of our nation and take over. They would have to disarm every single American first, which we are seeing is being attempted, I believe. Terry Nils mentions, wait a minute, what was that about bulletproof vests? Terry, in New York State, 2 months ago, appointed Governor Kathy Hochul had passed the law with the New York State Legislature right after the Supreme Court said it was, right before the Supreme Court said that you have a right to conceal carry. New York State came out and said that if you have a bulletproof vest, it is illegal. Let me say it again. It is illegal to buy and wear or to sell a bulletproof vest, a passive self-defense. It is a crime. It is a Class E felony to be able to own a bulletproof vest in New York State, and other states are looking to pass that same law. That is a fact. We've covered it on this program before. Thank you for asking the question, Terry. And yes, that is insane, that you cannot passively defend yourself. But this is what, and yet we are told by the press secretary of the United States, that it is the Republicans who believe in America first, who believe in the Second Amendment, that they're the bad guys for saying you should be able to wear a bulletproof vest in, say, Chicago or St. Louis or Detroit or in Baltimore, LA, New York City, the highest crime zones, the highest murder zones, the highest gun violence zones in the United States, which, by the way, happen to have all of the gun control plans, these promises that every Democrat has made over the last 4 decades. Not the last year, not the last 4 years, the last 4 decades. These states and these cities have every single gun control you can think of, and the answer to protect you is, oh, you can't wear a bulletproof vest. Now you're safe. That's what Kathy Hochul said. Don't believe me? Look it up. You'll see it for yourself. Coolroy says that fascism was never a right-wing ideology in America. Fascism is a European version of communism where the corporations and big government control everything. Well, that's not exactly correct, Coolroy. We see fascism is a form of socialism. It is a far left-wing ideology. So if you go far enough left, you will eventually get to communism. But before you get there, you get to socialism on a national level, like the National Socialist Party in the 1930s in Germany. So fascism is actually is a form of socialism created by the far left. And I just want to be fair and honest about it. That's what it is. So let's be honest with each other. Again, if we cannot have an honest conversation, we cannot have an honest government. And that is the problem we are facing today. And when we see things like this from the press secretary of the United States speaking for the White House, speaking for the executive department of our government, and telling us that Americans, fully 1/3 of America, which are Republicans and conservatives, that they are evil for wanting to protect our Constitution, then that doesn't make any sense. When they are telling you that even as Democrats in state after state, city after city, are taking away your rights, literally stripping your rights away, on top of stripping away your money, your finances, and your choices, whether it be your personal health care choices or your job choices, they're taking all of that away, and they're the good guys, but Republicans are the ones who are taking away your rights. That doesn't make sense. No wonder people do not trust our government or any of the people in it. And there's a consequence to all of this stuff. Let me show you. As an example, and we are seeing this in state after state, city after city, the 22 largest cities in the United States are all experiencing what I'm about to mention. In New York State, we have in New York City, Eric Adams, the practical progressive. That's his term. That is what he said he is. That's how he described himself after he won the election for New York City. The practical progressive is upset with New York City police officers because they are standing instead of patrolling, that they are not doing their job, that they are not protecting the public. Mind you, it's not that they're not protecting the public from life and death situations. That they're doing. They are protecting people from life and death struggles. But when it comes to everything else, no, they're not doing anything. They're standing there watching people get beat up. They are watching people get mugged. They are watching women get raped. Why? Well, it's real simple. The reason why they're doing that is, well, if they do anything, they're the bad guy. They're going to face being sued. They're going to lose their jobs. The news media and social media will come out and demonize them. They will become, they have come under attack by the far left radicals like BLM and Antifa. And these guys go out and try and they attack and assassinate police officers on a regular basis. That's not news, folks. We have seen that across this nation. We've seen it in Pennsylvania. We've seen it in New York, LA. We've seen it across this country. So they're not doing this. And when they do their job and they stop a mugger, they stop someone who's trying to rape a woman, what happens? Someone robs a bank. Well, the bail reform that progressives tell us we must have, people like John Fetterman in Pennsylvania, when they tell us that, hey, we can't have people in prison for life. We can't have a death penalty. In fact, we need to release all these criminals, murderers. This is John Fetterman who said this just 2 days ago. He wants to release murderers back onto the streets. In New York State, we have seen this. Remember the man who tried to kill Lee Zeldin? That was on video, live streamed. We had the author of the live stream on this program with us. And that man who tried to commit a murder in front of a dozen witnesses on a live stream was released within 2 hours of being arrested by the police. Now, miraculously, the federal government stepped in and arrested him and put him in behind bars because he is an obvious danger to himself and the public because he just tried to kill somebody. But the Democrats are telling you, don't worry, he's perfectly safe. Don't worry about that drug dealer that you just informed on in your neighborhood, who we just released back into the community, who's now threatening your life, trying to intimidate and coerce you so that charges get dropped. Don't worry about the repeat offenders. Over 15% of the people that have been released that go out the same day that they get arrested, turn around and go back and rob and steal and murder the same day. Yet Republicans, conservatives, libertarians, anyone and everyone who is not bowing down to the approved messaging of the major mainstream media and the Democratic Party, well, they're all bad guys. Obviously, you're sexist and racist because, just because we released a murderer back onto the streets, well, that's obviously racism or sexism. It's your problem. You're the bad guy here, not the criminal who just tried to kill someone. You're the bad guy here because the guy who just mugged and robbed a mom and a daughter at gunpoint, well, we let them back out onto the street because obviously they're not a threat. And you're a bad guy to say that they are. Can you believe that? Let me go back to some of the comments here. Dow says, funnily enough, people that distrust the government are often accused of trusting corporations by the same cult that puts trust and faith in both government and corporations. Well, remember, see, I'm old enough. I'm 54. I'm old enough to remember when we had the Democrats and progressives that said, oh, they hate corporations. And today, they tell you believe in corporations. The same people in the 1960s that said question the government are the people today that are telling you believe the government, don't question anyone. What's the difference between the 1960s and today? What's the difference between the 1990s and today? The people who are in power are the very same people who were protesting in the 60s and in the 90s. The very same people that told us we should never trust our government, this very same people who told us never to trust corporations, are the very same people who are telling us you can trust Mark Zuckerberg, you can trust Twitter and Facebook, you can, and YouTube, you can trust Google, you can trust the Democrats in the House and in the Senate and in the White House. You can trust all of them because they say so. But anyone else, no, you can't believe them. This is insane, folks. And this has failed every single time. Again, let's look at this. In New York State, crime is up 37% versus 2019. 37%. Rapes are up. Suicide is up. Domestic abuse is up 20%. Opioid use across the nation is at an all-time high, and it is breaking new highs as we go. And they're telling us the answer is less jail time, less police, and you have less of a right to defend yourself. You don't get to protect yourself from these criminals because they passed a law. And that's the answer. They passed a law. They passed 22,001 gun laws, gun control laws. So now you're safe, except criminals have been breaking all 22,000 laws. I don't think the 22,001st law is going to suddenly make them go, oh, I need to be a law-abiding citizen now. It doesn't work that way. And it's pretty sad because in Illinois, in the state of Illinois, Chicago, this week, you know what happened? I want to remind everybody about something. You may not remember. Remember the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act? We've covered it on this program before. We looked at what the bill actually says. They are spending $400 million of your taxes to pay states, every state in the nation, all 50 states. They will pay each state to create a red flag law. And they will pay a bonus, let's call it a bounty, for every single person that is on the red flag list that are been denied the right to own a firearm. Now, we told you that this was something that was going to come back and bite American people in the ass, that this was putting a target, a dollar sign on the backs of American citizens. This week in Illinois, they suddenly decided to do a compliance check to suddenly pick out 1,027 people in the state of Illinois and decided to find out if they are a danger to themselves and or the public. They didn't go and ask the Bloods. They didn't go after the Crips. They didn't go after, MS-13. They didn't go after any of the gangs in Chicago. They didn't go after the criminals in Chicago. They decided to pick out 1,027 law-abiding citizens, and they decided that 300 of them were a danger to themselves and the public. I want you to think about that. 1 in 3 people that were law-abiding citizens and gun owners who had not committed a crime. No crime was committed. Not one. And the state, out of the blue, decided to go and check on them, came over, knocked on their door and said, hey, we're going to see if you are safe. And 1/3 of the people that they found weren't safe. And what happened in Illinois? They got paid. The Bipartisan Safer Communities Act paid them for every single person that they said, you're no longer safe, give us your guns, you lost your Second Amendment rights, you didn't commit a crime, there was no trial, you lost your rights, you lost your property, you have been stigmatized in your community, and the state of Illinois got paid from your pocket, from your pocket. Does that make any sense to anyone? This isn't national news. It is regional news. It did happen. They don't want to tell you about it. Gee, I wonder why. Does that sound like, as the Press Secretary of the United States said, that somebody is taking away your rights and freedoms? I tell you what, in the state of Illinois, in the city of Chicago, it's not Republicans, it's not conservatives, it's not libertarians. It's the progressives and the Democrats. So somehow I think they might be lying to you. Just maybe. Just maybe. And again, don't believe me. Look it up for yourself. Look it up for yourself. State of Illinois, compliance check. This week, 300 people had their rights taken away from them. In fact, I'm sure I have. Do I have that? Bear with me a second because I thought I had that prepared. Here it is. Here it is. This is coming from bnd.com. Okay, Believe News Democrat. This is from August 24th of 2022. I didn't make any of this up. 300 Southern Illinoisans have to give up their firearms after gun rights were revoked. No crime was committed. Not one. And this is what the state had to say. Compliance checks are not about confiscating guns, but about ensuring individuals who have lost their firearm rights to transfer their firearms to law enforcement or someone who is legally able to possess them. If this wasn't about confiscating guns, why did you go to people who didn't commit a crime? If this was about safety, why did you go after people who were safe? No crime was committed. No red flag was started. This is the state deciding, hey, let's just go and pick a bunch of people and take away some of their rights. You can't tell me it's not about confiscating guns when 1 out of 3 people suddenly became a danger to themselves and their state without ever breaking a law or without anyone having a single complaint about them. Am I wrong? Am I misunderstanding this? And by the way, at the end of the show, as always, we will have links to everything that we have shown you. By the way, we got in trouble for this, by the way. I don't know if everyone knows. Our site, our channel was shut down by YouTube. And we were shut down for a couple of days because we had a link, just like we just showed you just now. And we told you, you can go and look it up for yourself. And YouTube didn't like the gun data that we were presenting to you. We had a link to the gun data for the United States, and they said, you can't show that to the public. You have to remove the link, and they gave us a hard strike, a hard strike on our channel and shut us down, threatening to shut us down for 2 weeks. We won the challenge. But that's the thing. We're still going to continue to show you at the end of the show. We're going to list every single link so that you can see for yourself, so that you can be informed, because YouTube doesn't want you informed. That's why they attacked our channel and tried to silence us and threatened us with deletion. And if YouTube, any of the authorities of YouTube would like to question this, I have the screenshots of the strike on the channel and my appeal. I will be happy to make it public if anyone in YouTube wants to question whether or not I have just made everything absolutely true. So, I know you've heard it before. Whoops. What difference does it? You make the difference.
I hit a button. Hang on.
Watch, chat, tweets.
Nope.
I know you've heard it before.
Whoop.
What difference does it? You make the difference when you watch.
Whoop.
I know you've heard it before.
I hit a
what
button
difference
somewhere.
does it? You make the difference when you watch,
Nope.
chat, tweets. I know you've heard it before.
What is this?
Difference does it?
Sorry, folks.
I know you've heard it before. What difference does it? You make the difference.
1 second,
you
folks. Oh, there it
watch,
is.
chat, tweets, your likes and shares and your subscription.
Oh,
You
come on.
make the difference.
Sorry about that. Sorry about that.
Was hit buttons by accident and brought up a commercial by accident. I apologize about that. Sometimes I get lost in my channels, especially when I'm focused here. But I want to have this conversation with you. So tell me, do you, and again, if you think I'm wrong, especially if you think I am wrong, 607-242-1582. Call in, tell me how I've misunderstood this. Please call in and tell me how the state of Illinois is getting paid to put people on the red flag laws and how that is not taking away your Second Amendment rights when you have committed 0 crimes. 0 crimes. That's the big thing. No crime was committed and no trial was had. You didn't get to go to court and decide this. They walked in, said, "You're not safe. Give us your guns. You have no more rights. Thank you." There was no trial. There was no crime. There wasn't even the accusation of a crime. And the government, the Biden-Harris administration, took money out of your pocket, literally took money away from you and paid Illinois for doing that to their people, for punishing their people for daring to have the Second Amendment. And Jean-Pierre, the White House press secretary, has the audacity to turn around and say to you and me that we're the bad guys and we're evil because I'm complaining about the government paying someone to take away my rights without a crime or a trial. Does that make any sense to anyone? Does that sound right to you? Does that make sense? Let me go a little further. And actually, let me go back to the comments for a second here. Because I know there's a lot of comments. Now, Dow says that progressives are finally getting the groundwork laid to the point of justifying a revolution so that they've so desperately craved. They just need the equivalent that kicks off the justification for complete authoritarian control. It is getting scary that they are defining this nation and trying to justify, and they do justify their violence. I mean, listen to BLM. They believe it's justified to commit violence. Listen to Antifa. They believe it's justified to commit violence. Listen to the far left. Hell, we have had them say that it's justified to commit violence against someone because you misgender someone that you don't know. That if you misgender someone online, they think that's a crime, that's a physical attack. And you know this to be true. You've seen the stories in Twitter. You have seen it for yourself, and God help it, you probably have been a victim of this, that someone in writing a comment to you attacks you on Twitter or Facebook or wherever social media, and you say he or she based on the picture that they might have or the name that they have, and they will go, you misgendered me, so now you have to be removed because you are a criminal. They do that all the time. On this program, we've had people who have come up and tried to do that to me on this show while we are live with you. You've seen that happen where some individual, a bot, came up and tried to tell me that I was a racist and that I was not black. And I said, well, that's a racist thing to say. And they said, oh, you are, so that makes you a sexist and a racist. That confirms that I'm a racist because I'm not a progressive and I'm black and Hispanic. And therefore they wanted to report me. Can you believe that? And yet, according to the White House, we're the bad guys. Does that make any sense? I know Tim Pool has been saying a lot about there's a second civil war coming. And actually, 5 years ago, I did a podcast about whether or not we may be running into a second civil war. And I have to tell you, I thought then that we were getting close to it. And I said it was within a decade. I look at it today and I tell you it's within 5 years. Because all of this pent up frustration isn't going away. Okay, so Cool Roy says the Democratic Party isn't pro-choice, it's pro-choose, and they get to choose everything we are allowed. Well, now I have a problem with any group, especially the progressive mindset that says you can say anything that you want as long as it's approved of first. See, that's not a choice. That's not freedom. They want you to think it's freedom. You can say anything as long as it's on the list, as long as you are on the right check box for whatever it is you want to say. See, I'm black, so I have to be a Democrat. According to the progressives, I have to be a progressive because I'm black and Latino. Well, I say that's racist. They tell me, no, that's not racist. That's just a fact. Because if you're not doing that, if you're doing something that isn't approved, that has not been authorized for your category, well, then you must be an ist and a phobe. Think about it, folks. Democrats, the progressives, want you to be a category, not a person. Listen to the news stories. Listen to the way they talk to you. Look at the things that they are promoting on social media. It isn't about individuals, it's about categories. It's white men, white women, black women, lesbians, trans. You're separated by the color of your skin, the gender, your sex, your preferences. They've got check boxes for all of that. And if you don't follow all the check boxes that they have decided you belong to, you are a problem. There's something wrong with you for not accepting that you're a checkbox and not an individual. I don't agree with that. I will never agree with that. I hope my audience will grow so that we can make more of a voice saying we don't accept that. So let me go on. User has been banned is with us. Hello. You might want to put the links and streams on an alt platform. Actually, user, we are on, and as you can see, we're on BitChute, Rumble, Odyssey, Minds, Telegram, Getter, Facebook, Twitter, Truth Social. We are on almost every social media platform that is out there. But the honest truth is, YouTube is the largest one. And until another platform takes off stronger, this is the main and primary source. So that's why we're here. But yeah, we have the links. If you go to Rumble, if you go to BitChute right now, you will see the links on there on every platform that we have. Let me go on. Jan says, and it's going to get worse because big tech already came out and said they're going to use the same disinformation algorithms as they did in 2020 for the upcoming midterms. Yes, remember that shadow cabal? New York Time magazine told us about the shadow cabal of tech giants that fortified, keyword, fortified the safest and most secure election ever. That they fortified that. And now they're going to fortify every election afterwards. They're going to fortify our elections. Really? Because you know what? America's been around for 250 years. And we didn't need people fortifying elections before then. Matter of fact, the last time I recall someone was fortifying elections in the United States, it was called Jim Crow. Maybe people don't agree with that. That's what I believe about it. But we'll go on. Yes, Cool Roy mentions that only 21% of Americans think America's heading in the right direction. And I agree. There's a reason why so few Americans actually believe that. And by the way, the 10 people who believe America's going in the right direction are the same people who believe that socialism is good, even though all evidence for the last 80 years in the world shows us that's not true. The only people who believe that America is going in the right direction, which is towards socialism, are the very same people who ignore socialism in Russia, in China, North Korea, Cuba, Venezuela. They ignore all the socialism in the world and how many people have died. More people have died under socialism than any other form of government in the history of mankind. But that 21%, they think it's a great idea because it has a wonderful marketing pitch. It sounds fantastic. They sell that on a daily basis because it sounds sexy, and they have every program in our schools, from elementary through high school through college, reinforcing that socialism is great. Che Guevara, who would kill gays and anyone who disagreed with him, well, he was a great guy. Mao, who is a mass murderer responsible for approximately it's estimated that about 120 million people were killed under Chairman Mao. They're selling t-shirts of him at every single college across America. Kids think he's great. Seriously, folks, there's a problem here. And I don't think it's because I have a different opinion. So let me catch up with some of the notes here. Mike Bowie. Hey, Mike. Glad to see you here. A friend on Facebook was suspended for calling an automobile transmission I can't say that. And was told it was offensive to someone. Yeah, and you know what? That's the thing. They are again, you are to be punished no matter what you do, even though when you have done nothing wrong. You didn't commit a crime, well, we're going to take away your Second Amendment rights anyway. You used a word. That word has an entirely different meaning. Oh, you're going to be punished and shut down anyway. This is about silencing people, controlling. Professor Peter Jordanson, Jordan Peterson, excuse me. I got his name reversed for some reason. Jordan Peterson made it very clear. If you control someone's language, you control the way they think. And that is what they are trying to do. Whether it's C-16 in Canada, whether it's the word police and thought police in United Kingdom, or whether it's the Ministry of Truth here in the United States, otherwise known as the Disinformation Governance Board, this is about controlling what you say and what you do. You are under constant threat that you're about to be punished because someone doesn't approve. And that is a problem because that's not freedom. You know what? You don't have to agree. You don't have to approve. You don't even have to like it. You can be offended all day long. That is your right. That does not give you the right to silence someone. Ever. Ever. Because the second you start saying, I'm offended, you can't do or say something, someone else will turn around to that same person and say, and now you've offended me. You lose your rights too. You lose your freedoms too. It is a cycle that never ends, and the only people who win are the elites at the top of the pyramid that get to look down on the neo-serfs that they have created, saying, yeah, you get punished today and tomorrow you get punished. By the way, we are absolved of all of that and can do anything. Think about it. Paul Pelosi got what, 5 days? He got a 5-day, he was jailed for 5 days for drunk driving and crashing his vehicle, endangering people's lives, injuring a driver in his car. He got 5 days. But yet, look at everyone else in the United States and tell me that they get the same penalty, especially when Paul Pelosi has done this multiple times. It's not his first offense, but he's treated entirely different than everyone else in the state of California. These are the realities, and we should ask questions about this. We should make a point about this because it is important. Now, I'm going to go into, in just a second, I want to talk about the economy. But I want you to remember that at any point in time, you are more than welcome to call into this program at 607-242-1582. And by the way, please like, share, subscribe. If you find any of this to be informative, interesting, entertaining, please share this with other people. Subscribe. Allow us to have a voice that can reach more and more people all around the world. That is the only thing that we ask for. To hear more people's voices and to hear what you have to say every Sunday and throughout the week because you matter. Okay? That's what we believe. And I think that's pretty fair. Now, I want to talk about the economy. Let me ask everyone, does anyone know how long the recession is supposed to last? Does anyone have an idea? Let me tell you. Supposedly, according to the Biden-Harris administration, it's temporary. That this is only a transition. The economy is really great because there's only 3.6 unemployment. That's the number. Don't think about any other aspect. Don't worry about when you go to the store. How much is when I say inflation, when you go to the store, how much are you paying today for what you, versus what you paid a year ago? Forget about 2 years ago or 4 years ago, just 1 year ago. Are you getting the same amount of food for the same amount of money? Because I can tell you, no, you're not. And if you're like what I see in my community in the southern tier of New York, if you're like what I've heard from people from across this nation, you're spending 35% more for food like milk and eggs and chicken. You're spending stupidly more. But they're telling you, this is transition, don't worry, that's not important because there's no recession because the unemployment rate is 3.6%. The definition of recession is two quarters of consecutive losses on GDP. GDP, the gross domestic product, means America lost money for 6 months in a row. Guess what? We've done that, and we're doing worse. I don't care what the unemployment number is. America is losing money. We are shrinking. There is a problem. It is evident in all the data, and we have been talking about that since February of 2021, February 17th of 2021 to be exact. And we restated that January of this year, 2022, and told you, get ready. Inflation's going to go up. We told you it's going to be going towards 15%. We told you that you're going to see energy prices, food, there's going to be problems. We've been right. I'm really upset about it. I actually am very upset about that because that's not the best thing. Now, if you think, Mike, and a lot of people say, well, Mike, how could you know that there's going to be a recession that's going to be lasting for the next 18 to 24 months? Why should we believe you when you say that there's going to be inflation of at least 15%? That we are losing money day by day because the value of your dollar is decreasing as Joe Biden is spending more and more money. $57 billion on the Ukraine, money that doesn't exist, that he had to print, that made your money worth less than the day before he did that. Well, you know what? You're right. I'm not an economist. But guess what? Richard Vedder is an economist. That's right. He's been an economist for about 55 years. And that economist, Richard Vedder, when he has heard what I have said to you for the last, 8 months, almost 9 months of this year, when he's heard me say that we're looking at a recession that will last at least 18 to 24 months, when I have said that we're going to see inflation at least at 15%, when I said that there is a food shortage that is going to affect every single American, regardless of what political party or age that you are, when I said all of that, you know what he said? I agree with every word that Michael has said. That's what he said. You can listen to his own words. The video exists. I was in a round table on the Rory Sauter show. Oops, excuse me. I was on a round table with the Rory Sauter show, and the economist, a renowned economist, and he's not the first one, listened to what I had to say and why, and he says it's true. You know what? I only hope I would love to be wrong. I wish we would be wrong. But the fact is that economist after economist looking at what is happening right now is telling you, you are being lied to. The Inflation Reduction Act will have no measurable impact on inflation. This is what the economists are saying. It's besides the fact that I've said it, because if you listen to the progressives, you listen to major news media, they will use what's called the authority slippery slope. It is a justification. Well, you're not an economist. How could you know? You're not a scientist. How could you know that masks would not protect you from an airborne virus? Your homemade cloth mask is not going to protect you from a man-made virus floating in the air. Oh, you can't know that. You're not a scientist. You don't need to be a scientist to know basic science and to think it through. Guess what? Today, that evidence is already out. Today, we have seen UCLA and USC both come out with reports saying the masks were meaningless. They didn't do anything. You were lied to. The government, the Biden-Harris administration in particular, and Dr. Fauci were saying things to make you feel like they were doing something, even though it had no impact on your life, that it didn't have any benefit to your health. But it was the government telling you that you have to listen, that they were smarter than you were, even though it did nothing for you. And it took 2 years for the social media giants to allow me to make that one statement, to say that masks weren't effective. 2 years before I could say that. And I have to ask you, why is that so dangerous? Why is it so bad that someone could say masks aren't the most effective way to deal with an airborne virus? A homemade mask is not the most effective way to deal with an airborne virus. That is basic science. Basic science. You learn this in 6th or 7th grade. And they're telling you can't say that. Why not? Why can't I say that? In America, a nation built on the First Amendment, where we are supposed to question our leaders and demand that they provide us with answers. And the answers that we eventually got said, oh, you're right. But I have yet to hear Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, the social media giants, Dr. Fauci, the Biden-Harris administration say, I'm sorry for wasting millions, tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars of Americans' income to destroy the public image and credibility of thousands, tens of thousands of doctors and American citizens on every social media platform. Oh, no, that's okay. Well, we did that to them. Yeah, well, that's in the past. Let's keep going forward. They don't care. And you know what? They don't care because it was never about that. It wasn't about the mask mandate. It wasn't about the science. It has never been about the science. It has been about control. It has been about making you do what you are told, to obey. And if anyone disagrees, again, you can call into 607-242-1582. The phone line is open for anyone, whether you agree or you disagree, but I especially want people who disagree to call in and tell me how what I've been saying throughout the entire process, that this airborne disease could not be stopped by just wearing a mask. Can't. It's not possible. And that was something that would delete the channel up until we just saw UCLA and USC say, hey, we did a study. You know what? Surprising to them, surprising to the powers that be, all the evidence that is collected and has been collected by the WHO, by governments around the world, confirm what we already knew a year and a half ago. It doesn't work. It's not effective. There are better things you could do. Now, that's not to say that you can't wear a mask. And if you want to, wear a mask every day of the week. Go out there and wear masks of any type that you want. I don't care if it's cloth mask, crochet. You can wear pantyhose over your face for all I care. That's your life. Do whatever you want. If it makes you feel good, go for it. You can wear triple masks. You can wear 15 masks all over your face. I could care less. That's your life. That's your medical decision. And the only person who should be involved in that conversation is your doctor. That's it. Your doctor, you, period. The government isn't involved. I'm not involved. And no one else should be involved. But that's not what they did. That's not what they did. What they did is said, you must obey. That the government is smarter than you. This is the same government that is currently deciding that they are going to handle inflation by creating more money, a problem that creates inflation. Literally, we have part of the reason why we have so much inflation is that we are spending trillions of dollars, $5.4 trillion we are spending faster than we have ever spent money before. And that is creating inflation. So their answer is, let's add another $600 billion to increase that inflation to make it 6 trillion in spending. Let's spend more, which creates more inflation. Does that make sense to anyone? That's the basic math. I'm trying to make this as simple as possible so that everyone in the world can understand. You spent money you didn't have, which means you have less. So they decided to spend even more that they don't have so that they can have even less. That's what's happening in our government right now. This is the genius of the Biden-Harris administration. I swear, this is making Obama's economic policies look like brilliance. And he's the guy who's responsible for the summer of recovery. Remember that? Remember the Obama stimulus that Democrats will not refer to, that they will not speak to? Remember the entire Obama stimulus package that was supposed to reduce inflation and didn't do it, unemployment and didn't do it, that extended the recession, not reduced it? Remember cash for clunkers that nearly wiped out the automobile industry for months at a time? It actually cost more money than they thought it would save. Do you remember these things? And Joe Biden, with Kamala Harris's help, is making that look like a smart idea. Do you know how much money American citizens lost on GM? Remember when we bought into, GM was too big to fail. And we, the American people, became shareholders, direct shareholders of GM because of electric vehicles and the change in the future. And we lost money. It was a horrible investment. It put government in the business of making automobiles, and they did a worse job than GM did. And we all lost money because of it. And that is looking like a bright idea compared to what the Biden-Harris administration is doing right now. Let me get back to some of the comments. And from here, I want to talk about, and I want to go to talking about college debt. Okay? But let me get to some of the comments. So let me see here. Dow mentions, remember when Fauci was yelling at people not to buy rebreathers and hazmat PPE? Yeah, I remember that. And I remember when they said, no, that's not necessary. All you need to do is wear a cloth mask. Yeah, that was untrue. Terry Nils says, can you point me to videos that accurately breaks down the BLM movement? I was overseas when it got really widespread, and when it came back to, it's hard to find unbiased information. Terry, I would advise you, just go onto this channel, No Soundbites Allowed, and in the search function on our page, type in BLM. I have dozens of stories with links to every single major news media source, every credible source that will tell you about BLM. I have been following BLM in its various forms since about 2016. Actually, no, correction, 2015 with the beer summit for President Obama when he invited BLM into the White House after the Dallas attempted assassination of police officers because of BLM. I have been following them since then. I remember I followed them in my local region since 2016. Just go to the channel, No Soundbites Allowed. In the search, type in BLM. Or you can go to any search engine in the world. New York, go to Google, type in No Soundbites Allowed, BLM, type in Michael Voss, BLM. You will get the stories. It's as simple as that, and I will have dozens of links so that you can find all the information you want on your own. That's the easiest way I can do that. Jan mentions, Fauci pissed me off when he came out and said he had nothing to do with the shutdown. That is a lie. That is an absolute lie, and we know that because in real time, we know that Fauci was one of the biggest promoters of lockdowns, that he's come out multiple times, both justifying lockdowns and suggesting that we need more lockdowns. So you can't go by that. Let's see. User has been band has said masks do have a benefit. It's great for the sales over at Walmart and some of the major, not the mom and pops, but the big chains, the big mega corporations. Remember, progressives hate corporations, except if they happen to be Walmart and helps China, or they have to be pharmaceutical companies that helps to control the public. Then they love them. If it's Apple, they love them. If it's Starbucks, they love them. But if it's anything else, well, then they're just evil and they're greedy. It's amazing. Let me see some of the other comics. Dow says, I had rebreathers that made us look like stormtroopers. That's kind of funny. I like that. That would have been cool to walk around in. And user has been banned says he had spacesuits and bubbles work and spend more on garbage that doesn't work. Yeah, remember the Obama phones. I remember that too. Now, I bring up some of these things in our past to put it into perspective. See, there's very few in the news media that actually look at how did we get here? What were the things that led to this? And the chain going backwards in time goes back decades. But rather than try and do that, I do want you to know, I am paying attention. For over 15 years, I've been doing political commentary. I've talked to politicians in Congress. I talk to members of Congress on a regular basis, all parties. I talk to some of the lobbyists that deal with Congress. I talk to the local politicians throughout central and southern New York State on a regular basis. And I get to hear these things. And I remember what these people have said. They think you're stupid. They think you forgot. They believe that Americans have been trained to only have a 3-month memory. You don't remember things more than 3 months. I think it was Zuby who recently said on Twitter, there is a pattern that we see today. And that pattern is that everyone sees something that is obvious, like inflation. Inflation is caused by spending money you don't have. Some people say that they talk about what is obvious. That is spending money you don't have and printing money forever is a stupid idea. Then those people are attacked, like by Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez or Andrew Yang, who believe, and they have said this publicly, and we've covered this many times, that you can print money forever. It doesn't matter. Just print money forever. There is no inflation. There is no debt. It doesn't matter. That's what Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who has a degree in economics, that's what Andrew Yang, who claims that he is one of the smart Asians, that's what Andrew Yang has said about himself, that these are leaders, quote unquote, leaders, these brilliant people who became smart by osmosis by getting public opinion and votes. These brilliant geniuses said, just keep spending. It doesn't matter about inflation. It doesn't matter about the debt. None of that matters. Just print more money because they don't understand history and the Weimar Republic or just basic math. How about, you don't even have to go back to the 1940s. Just think about the 1980s, 1990s when we had the South American banana republics. They had money that they were printing left and right all day long, and they went bankrupt. And that's what we're doing to the United States. Great idea. I don't know why they think it's a great idea, but they think this. And we're not supposed to ask questions. You're supposed to just say, okay. Even when we have people who do, when we have economists from around the world that are telling you this is a bad idea, that this is hurting the world, that these stupid ideas are causing the economy to fall apart, and that when they're even admitting this. Look at this. The Fed chair, this came out from Bloomberg News, came out today, that if we are looking at what's going on with inflation, and I believe I have it here. Where is it? Fed futures. Basically, they are saying that inflation, and I forgot my section where it is in here, that inflation is going to be extended and it's going to increase. Interest rates are going to be going higher, and we are going to be in a recession well throughout all of 2023. He has admitted it. The United States Fed chair has admitted to the world that inflation will go higher, that there is a recession and it will last longer, and that the Fed is going to increase rates even more than the 3.8 that they have already predicted. That we are in trouble. In other words, our economy is failing. You didn't see this in the major news media. They're not talking about this all over the place. Yes, it's in Bloomberg News, and how many people would have read this article if I never showed it to you? That if I didn't bring it up to you, okay? That's why we're seeing stock markets are decreasing. We have not gotten out of the bear market in the United States. And if you wonder, well, the stock market's only for rich people. That's for those evil rich people. If you own an IRA, you're one of those crazy rich people. You're one of those people who are going to have their incomes destroyed. We are in a bear market, and this is bad news. It is saying we are in a worse economic, it doesn't matter what the unemployment rate is. It doesn't matter. The cost of energy is up, and it's going to stay up. There is a food shortage that is starting in just a month or so. We have increased inflation, and they are spending more money, creating more inflation. That combination, I don't care what the unemployment rate is going to create stagflation. This is for those of us who are old enough to remember President Carter. This is going to stagnate the economy and increase costs. And I pray that you have been buying extra food since January, like we have said on this channel, week after week. I hope and pray that you put some money away on the side. I hope and pray that you have a stockpile of food like rice and canned foods so that you will be able to get through the next year. Not the winter, not the next 3 or 4 months, the next year. Because something else they are not telling you in the major news media is when we get into this, when this crop is done, we have to wait a year for them we have to go through the winter, then they have to plant the crops, grow the crops, and then collect the crops. That's a year. We are looking at a year before we can get back to the normal production of food, if that is possible. There are already food riots in Sri Lanka, in Panama, in Eritrea, throughout Africa. There are riots today already, and it's going to get worse. My God, I hope you've been buying food and stockpiling it. Because if I'm wrong, God help me, if I'm wrong, great news. You don't have a thing to worry about. You get extra food, donate it to your local veteran association. Donate it to the VA, donate it to anywhere. Donate it to anything, any homeless program. Great news. It's not as bad as I thought. I'll be happy to be wrong. I'm not. Richard Vedder, an economist, has already said, I'm not wrong. And guess what? It's not just him. The Fed chairman has said, Fed Chairman Powell has already said that this is going to be it. That we are going to see an increase in the costs. That it is going to be worse than what we have expected. He's already said it. It's just not popular to talk about it. And it's already affecting every country in the world. This is not just America. Just type in 18% inflation. That's it. Type in 18. Let me refresh it for you right now in front of your faces. This is it. This is what you get when you type in 18% inflation. The United Kingdom inflation could peak at 18% next year. That's coming from Citibank. 18% in 2023. Think about that. And if that's happening to England, what do you think is going to happen to the United States? What do you think is going to happen to Europe? And if they are having a problem, and by the way, the United States, thank you, President Obama, is a service economy. We don't manufacture things anymore. So if England and the United Kingdom are in inflation. They're in a deep recession. They can't manufacture stuff. And China isn't manufacturing stuff because they're pissed off at the United States because they don't like our policy on Taiwan. And we have leaders that keep pissing them off more by going over to Taiwan for no good reason. They're not making stuff for us anymore. They're slowing down what they are making. Guess what that means for the United States? A recession. In fact, we may be talking about a depression. I mean, think about it, folks. Am I mistaken here? You say, Mike, well, what do you mean China? Why are they going to do that? Why would China do anything crazy like that? Let me show you. This is what's happening in China. I don't know if anyone paid attention to this because I read more than just the United States news. Looking at Reuters, their Asia Pacific division, they came out. U.S. Senator arrives in Taiwan defying an angry Beijing. This is 2 days ago, August 26th. You know who that was? Marsha Blackburn. Now, let me be very clear. Marsha Blackburn is an idiot. Why is she in Taiwan? And someone asked me this. I think I was talking on the Rory Sauter show on his roundtable when that came up. And the answer is very simple. Marsha Blackburn is a member of the Senate. She can actually vote on a treaty if the United States has a treaty. That's what our Senate does. So she would be able to ratify it. So she has the ability to go to another nation and to talk about policy that we have, treaties that we could have with that nation. Except we don't have any new treaties with Taiwan. In fact, we're backtracking away from the treaty we already have. The Biden-Harris administration has been stepping back saying, we're going to let Taiwan go because China's pissed off. But see, when Nancy Pelosi went there, why was that useless? Because Nancy Pelosi is in charge of the House. She doesn't get to vote on treaties. She has no point and purpose. The only reason why she went there was to try and get votes in the 2022 midterm elections. She wanted to look like she's tough, that she's the boss bee, as some kids would say these days. That's why she went there, to try and look strong, to look like she's in charge. And she pissed off China, which then wound up threatening our allies in South Korea, in Taiwan, and in Japan, firing 11 hypersonic missiles that we can't shoot down, increasing the global tension in the world and destabilizing the peace. And now Marsha Blackburn, who is a Republican, has gone over there. Why? Pelosi already made the point of pissing off the Chinese. She's already been useless. There is no new treaty with Taiwan or with Korea or with Japan. Why would we send her there? Why is she there? What is she doing besides trying to look strong to get votes in 2022? And for the same reason that I said Nancy Pelosi was a fool and endangered the United States and has made things worse, I am now saying that about Marsha Blackburn because she's doing the same exact thing. And I don't care that she's a Republican. It is not in the best interest of the United States. This serves no purpose for our national security. It only makes the world worse off. And the only reason why she's getting away with it is the news media is too busy talking about Mar-a-Lago and President Trump and a bad warrant that was issued against him. They're too busy trying to distract you so that you won't think about Southeast Asia because you might think about Afghanistan if you're thinking about international politics. And yes, I want to talk about Afghanistan. I want to talk about Americans who are in Afghanistan. But I want to make sure you understand how this is all tied together. That when we take away the rights and freedoms of American citizens, when we can't defend ourselves, when we are having the government punish us without any charges, without any crimes, without even the accusation of a crime, and that puts us in a defensive stance where we are afraid to speak up. to be able to have our voices heard. And then our government goes on, because they have no opposition, the public is not involved, they can get to waste our money on issues that we have nothing involved with. They are wasting money. Why are we spending $54 billion on the Ukraine? Let me be very clear about that. Now, this is, the New York Times says it's $54 billion. Statistica says it's $44.5 billion that the United States has spent on the Ukraine in the last 8 months. Why are we spending the money there? Why? What does the Ukraine have to do with the United States domestic or international policy? In fact, before December of 2021, most people didn't know the Ukraine existed. Most Americans couldn't point to the Ukraine on a map, just a map of Russia itself. If I showed you a map of the former Soviet Union, most Americans can't figure out where the Ukraine is. Let's be honest. That's how meaningless that nation is to most people in America. We didn't know who they were. We didn't care who they were. And before Hunter Biden started getting bribed there, we could care less. Even as people were coming up and saying Hunter Biden was being bought off because he was buying influence of his father, people still didn't care. Joe Biden knew that American citizens didn't care enough about the Ukraine, that he was willing to be videoed. He was on videotape saying that he coerced the Ukrainian government to protect his son. Yes, remember that wonderful statement that we've all seen by this time where he said, fire the prosecutor and leave my son alone, or you don't get the $1 billion from the United States government. And if you didn't believe him, he told, and if you think I'm wrong, call up Obama. Remember that threat that he made? That coercion that he did, which is absolutely illegal? And most people didn't care because it was in this country called Ukraine. No one cared about it. Now we've spent somewhere between $44 and $54 billion in less than 6 months. Do you know how much food that would pay for? Do you know how many veterans we could take care of? How many homeless people we could help in this nation? I mean, seriously, let's think about it. $54 billion. It's a number so large that, quite honestly, almost no one can actually, I don't think anyone can actually comprehend how much money $54 billion is. We talk about it, but do you really understand how much money that is? I don't think anyone does. It's not a real number. And we spent that in less than 6 months. Increasing the net debt in the United States, increasing the amount of inflation that you have to pay. That's why it costs so much for you to get a hamburger for you and your kids, a Happy Meal at McDonald's. Why is that up? Because we just gave $54 billion to the Ukraine, a place you can't find on the map. And remember, this is, according to the press secretary, Republicans are the bad guys because we don't want to give money to people like the Ukraine for no reason. By the way, what do we get for that $54 billion? What are we getting for this? Here's a question that no one in the news media wants to ask. You should ask. You watching this are the government of the United States. You are influencing international policy right now. Yes, you are. Politicians answer to you, especially when it's an election year. So they definitely want to answer your questions. They want to impress you. Ask them, what are we getting for this money we are spending in the Ukraine? I understand that Hunter Biden, will get a kickback, that he's going to get some money from some of the gas companies he worked for because, they have a good relationship with him. I understand that. Some of the other politicians who have their kids who work in the Ukraine, they're going to get some money. Their kids are going to keep their jobs. I get that. What do you get? How does this make your life better? How is this going to feed the kids in your house? Why has no one in the news media asked that question? How does this help you, the American citizen? How does this help the people in the United Kingdom? Again, I'll ask the same question. I know the podcast of the Lotus Eaters asked this question as well. What is England getting? They just spent $6.5 billion, which is what? About 12% of what America has spent so far, but it's a lot of money for the British. So the United Kingdom spent $6.5 billion. What do they get for this? The EU, European Union, who needs the gas from Russia, have spent $16 billion on the Ukraine. What are they getting for this? I can tell you for Germany, you know what they got? Less gas. They had even higher costs in energy. Their people are facing, they're going to die. Some people may be dying in Germany from freezing to death because Russia is turning off the gas, which will increase the cost of gas around the world. What are we getting for this? Why are we doing it? And here's the thing. If you can't answer why we are doing this, why we are spending this money, if you can't tell me what is the goal, then why are we doing it? What is the end game here? What do we gain? Because if we don't know what we're going to get, how do we know it's worth it? And shouldn't we figure that out before we spend $100 billion, maybe $1 trillion in a war we're not in? I mean, it is an economic proxy war, as we've said on this channel for many, many months, but we don't have troops there. It's not one of our allies. We don't have to do this. This isn't our fight. Is it crazy? Because according to the White House, according to social media, well, then you must be evil to even ask the question of what do we get out of this? Why are we doing this? They want to label you and say, oh, well, then you love Putin. No, I don't love Putin. I've lived in Russia. I've lived under the communists. I was there doing business in 1991. I know what communism looks like. I know what Putin was up to during that time. I've actually seen it firsthand. No, I do not love Putin. But I still want to know, why are we spending $54 billion and counting in the Ukraine where the United States has no interest? It is not in our benefit. But they want to label you and silence you. They want to label you and silence you. Kind of like when we saw this on August 21st. Did you notice this? That Minneapolis teachers, hey, the same place that Cori Bush is from. Remember her? I'm going to get to her, that she wants you to pay for her college loans. In Minneapolis, they have said that if you are white and if you are a teacher and you are a brilliant teacher and you will get fired before a bad teacher who happens to be black or Asian or Hispanic. Did you know that? It's real. This is from ABC News. It's a left-leaning source. This isn't coming from the right. This is from the left. That the unions have decided that if you are white, you're evil and you need to be punished. Why? Because you did your job. See, if they have to fire people in Minneapolis, teachers, if they have to fire teachers in Minneapolis because the state, the city doesn't have any money because we're in a recession and they may have to fire some people, well, they're going to fire white people first. Not because they're better or worse at the job, but because of the color of their skin. You know what we used to call that? Racism. That's pure, unadulterated racism. They are being racist, and they are cheering that on. You should hate that. I hate that. Because it's looking at people, again, as a checkbox. not because of the value of the individual, not because of the outcome or what they are worth, but merely because they happen to have the wrong skin color. So they need to be punished without having done anything wrong. You could have the best teacher in a school, and they would happen to be white. And you could have another teacher who might be the worst teacher, a brand new teacher who has never taught a day in their life, a teacher who has been teaching for 20 years and has dozens of awards, versus another teacher who just got hired yesterday. You have to fire one of those two people. If you're looking at what the value of that person is, who has contributed the most, who may potentially contribute the most in the future, you would say keep the teacher who's been around for 20 years and has awards. In Minneapolis, they said, which one is white? And you're going to tell me that's not racist. And these are the people, BLM, Antifa, the Biden-Harris administration with their gender diversity agenda. You're going to tell me that's not racist? But I did promise that I wanted to talk. Now, I mentioned all of this about the economy to bring us to a very simple thing. And I'm going to get back to the comments in just a moment. But I want you to understand, this all ties into college tuitions. So we're in a recession that is extending, it is getting longer and deeper. We are on the verge of a depression. It is affecting every aspect of our lives and around the world. And it is not something that we are going to be able to get ourselves out of in any short-term period. It's not going to end in 3 months. It's not going to end in 6 months. It's going to take at least a year, if not 2. That's coming from the economists. That is a fact. And in that environment where we can't afford anything, and the more money we spend, the deeper in the hole we go, the more it's going to affect poor people and the middle class. The more money we spend, the more expensive everything becomes, the harder people who are poor or middle class are going to find it. The harder it's going to be for you to live your life. And progressives said, I want your money. They said, pay off their college loans. In this environment, they said, pay off their loans. And the Biden administration did it. Okay, Justice Scalia, former Supreme Court Justice, said, the transformation of charity into legal entitlement has produced donors without love and recipients without gratitude. It's a wonderful meme, and it's true. We have progressives like Cori Bush, like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, like Andrew Yang, who are saying to you that you should pay for their debt because they want it, because of feelings, not because they have any gratitude for being in the greatest nation in the world, not because they are thankful for having an education that women around the world pray they could even glimpse at. There are women around the world, in Afghanistan in particular, that pray that they will be able to learn how to read. And we are looking at education systems that don't care, that are saying you don't need a useful degree. You don't have to be efficient at all. You have a degree in lesbian dance theory. Fantastic. It has absolutely no purpose in the world. You will never get a job doing this. You just spent $100,000 to interpret lesbian dance. Fantastic for you. You know what? It's your money. I don't care. But when I have to pay for it, now I care. And you aren't even willing to say thank you to me. They got $10,000, maybe $20,000, depending on how you look at the Biden administration's goal here. And they said it's not enough. They are asking for more. They want more of your money. They're not even thankful for the money they got removed that I have to pay for now for their useless degree. And you know what? When I have to pay for your degree, I do get to have a comment on it. I do get to say whether or not I think it's useful. If I have to pay for your degree, I get to make a comment. I get to comment on your grades. I get to comment on the subject that you did. And you know what? I don't want to pay for it. If you didn't get all A's, and if you couldn't be doing something useful, like becoming an engineer, becoming an electrician, a carpenter, a plumber, if you can't do that, and you didn't get all A's, I don't want to pay for your crap. I don't care if you know about African studies. I don't care. I don't live in Africa. I live in America. And at the moment, in America, I'm more concerned about whether or not we have enough electricians than whether or not I can figure out if Kunta Kinte was in North or South Africa. I don't care. It's not going to change my life. I'm not an African. I'm an American. Shocking. I know. This is terrifying. And why do we need it? You know what? I'm not saying you can't do it. I'm not saying that. But if you are going to do something that has no long, wide-reaching benefit, why am I paying for it? If you're going to be a doctor, I can understand why we would say, you know what? Doctors heal people all over the place, and we need doctors. We are short doctors. We need 1.3 million doctors across the United States over the next 10 years. We need to hire doctors. We need a ton of doctors for the United States. That is a fact. That is a fact. If you're saying, Mike, we need you to help pay for people to become doctors because in New York State alone, we need over 50,000 doctors. 34,000 because appointed Governor Kathy Hochul fired 34,000 of them because she's brilliant. And then we just need it for population growth. We need more doctors. Well, then I'd say, you know what? I can understand that the public good, it helps people, could help me too. That makes sense. Don't you think that makes sense? But they're telling us, no. This is for people who are going out and they're telling Africa studies, gender studies. They have defined, this is so that someone can figure out how to define man as the opposite of woman. And then someone else can define woman as the opposite of man. And that costs $100,000 that they want me and you to pay for. So that they can say the opposite of man is woman. And now that's the answer. Yay, gender studies. They had to study 4, 6, 8 years to get degrees, many of them, to be able to say man is the opposite of woman. Isn't that wonderful? Don't you want to spend $100,000 on that? You don't want to feed your kids during a recession. You don't want to pay off your mortgage in a recession. You don't want to keep the business that you tried to start and had to deal with both the vaccine, both the pandemic and now a recession. No, you don't want to spend your money on those things. You want to be able to pay for someone to say the opposite of woman is a man. Because you need to spend $100,000 to be able to say that. Gender studies degree. There you go. And you want my money for that. Think about it. They want your money for that. Which is why I say the transformation of charity into legal entitlement has produced donors without love and recipients without gratitude. Because I have no love but taking my money to promote critical race theory that says that white people are evil and black people are victims. I have no love of taking my money to pay for someone's gender studies degree to tell me that the opposite of woman is man. I'm sorry, you don't need my money for that. Don't waste my time. That's not worth my money. It's not worth your money. It does not benefit the nation or anywhere else in the world. And nowhere else in the world wastes their time with such crap. People are starving in Sri Lanka. They don't care what your pronouns are. People are dying in Venezuela. The Venezuelan government is actively killing its own people. They don't care what pronoun the dead body gets to have. They could care less. You can go across the world and you will find those answers. Don't waste my time asking me to pay off for your stupid degree that you probably didn't get an A for that I don't need. Am I wrong? 607-242-1582. Call in. Tell me, Mike, no. It's absolutely important that we have 10,000 students with master's degrees being able to define man as is the opposite of woman. That is critical to world peace. Please explain that to me. Please tell me how that's more important than having an electrician or a welder who can fix the bridges and the tunnels around this nation. Please, let's put that on a scale and tell me how that balances. Please. And you know what? They won't say this to you. The news media won't say this. You go to ABC, NBC, you look around the various liberal podcasts, the Young Turks, they're never going to say this to you. They don't want you to think and to say, hey, would I rather pay for an engineer or a welder who can fix the bridges and tunnels and roads around my city, or someone who has a degree that can tell me what the definition of a woman is? That's what you're paying for. That's what Cory Bush, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Andrew Yang, that's what they want you to spend money on. And they want all your money because they have more debt. And it doesn't matter that they make more money than you. It's your money. You're evil. You have to give it to them. It's evil not to give them that money. It's evil not to give them the money for these reasons. Can you believe that, folks? Come on, I can't believe nobody, for or against, there's nobody who's watching this program who has nothing to say about college loans. If you think we should pay off a student's loan, please understand. I understand. I'm very vocal. I'm very animated. I speak in a very authoritative tone. I understand that. I will listen to you. I will treat you with the utmost of respect to hear someone who says, Mike, you are wrong. I want to understand the other side. I understand the arguments of the other side. I know what they have put out as their bullet points. I understand the politics, but I cannot see the justification. And if you believe that this is something that should be done besides the answer of greed, I mean, I understand, and I do not fault. I understand. Every student in America, including people I know, friends of mine, I'm happy. Hey, you just got $10,000, maybe $20,000 of your debt wiped out. Good for you. The money's there. They already spent it. I understand. I respect why you took it because they already spent the money, $600 billion. They already spent it. So I understand why you would take it since it's already spent. It's like the stimulus that we got. They sent you a check for $2,000. The money was already spent. Might as well cash it. I can't blame you for that. But I can say this doesn't make any sense. Why would we even think of doing this in the first place, especially in a recession? Whether or not they want to admit it's a recession, why would we do this in the middle of a recession, a global recession that we know is going to last at least 18 months and will at least hit 18%? And at the same time that our nation doesn't make anything anymore. Does any of this make any sense? Have I missed the boat? If I'm wrong, tell me why. I'm perfectly happy to hear you out. I will give you as much time as you need to explain to me why I'm wrong. I especially ask Josh Riley, who's running for the New York 19th. He's running for Congress, and he wants to be a congressman, to promote these ideas. Please call into this program, explain to your constituents and the people of America that are watching this, our allies from around the world in India, the United Kingdom, France, Germany, China, Canada, Peru, that are watching this program. Please explain to them why we should be spending this money in this way. Please do. If Donna Lapardo, Jason Garnar, appointed Governor Kathy Hochul, former Congressman Antonio Delgado, who abandoned his own constituents in the New York 19th. If any of these guys want to call in and explain this, I'm happy to hear it. Leah Webb, who's running for, state senator of the 52nd District. Please, you're all Democrats. This is the policies your party is promoting in New York State and for the nation. Please explain why we should do this. Please. I've been asking them to explain this for years. And you know what? In the last 2 years, they've all shut down. They do not want to speak. They are afraid to have to answer a serious question. They want the softballs that come from WNBF and other happy, friendly news media that want to say, "Oh, you're doing such a great job." No, you're not. You're doing a piss poor job. You're screwing over the nation and you're destroying our lives. And I'm only asking you, why? Do you have any plan, any reason, any justification for destroying so many lives? And I truly don't believe that's too much to ask for. Okay, I'm going to go back to asking some of the comments here. Hang on a second, folks. Give me a second, folks. One second. Just bear with me, bear with me. So, let's go through some of the comments here. I know I've been going at it for a little while. Again, you can always call in and stop me because I've been on a little bit of a roll here. But let me see some of the comments here. So, Cool Roy says, I served during the Cold War in West Germany. I know what freedom is and isn't. I know what works and what doesn't. I serve others and my country, not party or self, which is a beautiful thing. And thank you, Cool Roy, for the service and coming back home to us well. Dow says, it's legal, thought unlegal until litigated and then by the damage is done already. And speaking about what we're doing with college loans, Dow is saying, it's legal until we get through the court process. This is unconstitutional. It just hasn't gone through the courts yet. The second it does, it fails. Joe Biden does not have the authority to do this, in case you were wondering. And the reason why I can say that is because Nancy Pelosi, December of 2021, already said that. Congress must make the choice. Congress decides how to spend the money, not the President of the United States. He's in the executive branch. This is legislation. This is about money that comes from Congress. Nancy Pelosi, as much as I don't like anything she has to say, is right. Joe Biden does not have the power to do this. So the second this goes to court, it will get proven unconstitutional. Dal, you were correct. It's just going to take how long until we get there? How much money are we going to waste until then? Jan says, and they're paying farmers not to plant food. That is true. Even though we're in a food shortage, the United States government is currently paying farmers not to plant food. That is a fact. They're paying farmers to, instead of make corn for you to eat, they are making corn for ethanol. Because green energy, yeah, which is also destroying our oceans, but no one wants to talk about that. Yes, the ethanol destroys the oxygen in our oceans. And we are paying farmers, instead of making food for the food shortage that is coming up, they are making food, they're making fuel for ethanol. That's what our government's doing. And it's because some genius went to school, had a degree in economics, that came up with this plan somewhere. I don't understand it. Called AOC. I don't get it. Doesn't make sense. User has been banned says there should be an enforcement arm for the Supreme Court that arrests elected representatives when they yay a bill that is unconstitutional, make them pay fines or do time for voting for a bill that violates the Constitution. Well, actually, user has been banned. There is a process to punish politicians that do something that is unconstitutional. And that is, people vote them out of office. That's it. You vote them out of office. It is the ultimate term limit. Vote them out. You have the power, which is why you are told on a repeated basis that your one vote doesn't count. You know how many times in my local community, the last election, the last New York 22nd district, it was decided by 100 votes. There are half a dozen elections that were decided by a dozen people or less in the southern tier of New York over the last 4 years. A dozen. Your vote counts. The only people who are telling you your vote doesn't count are people who don't want you to vote them out. They're people who are trying to preserve their power. And the less people who vote, the more likely they can get to keep their power. That's the only reason why someone's telling you don't vote. And that's the ultimate power for someone who, if they break the Constitution, vote them out. It's not the fastest process. It's not the best process, but it is an effective process. All right, let me see. Let's see. The Dow says the biggest thing with this inflation, the biggest thing the government and realtors will be involved in is seizing property for failure to pay taxes as the price goes up to retain it. Cool, right? Says this is what socialism and poor leadership does. That's one of the aspects, yeah. Well, but that's true always. In a bad economy, people like businesses who have been saving up cash for a decade, all those businesses that took their money out of the United States during the Obama-Biden administration from 2009 until 2016, all those businesses overseas that kept their money outside of America, they're sitting now with that cash. They didn't spend it all in the last 4 years or the last 6 years. And they're able to come in now and they're buying things cheap. It's called a fire sale. It's the same thing that happened. Literally, I can tell you, I was a stockbroker, did it for about a decade, and I was a stockbroker after 9/11. Now, after the towers got hit and the market got shut down, about 2 days later, I got in touch with all of my clients. And I told them, get as much money as you can together. I want you to take every single dime that you have, and we are going to buy banks and brick companies and all the basic building blocks of America, because everything was down. Remember, I know some people are too young to remember those days in 2001, but the entire market had just crashed. It was devastating. Everything was on sale. It was a fire sale. People acted as if the country was gone after 9/11, that it was the end of the world. And I said to every one of my clients that if you think America will not exist in 5 years, sell everything, take the money, go to a private island and hang out. But if you believe America will exist in 5 years, this is the time to buy. Spend all of the free cash we can collect and let's buy everything all day long. Buy it all day long. Buy the best businesses you can all day long. Why? It's on sale. And in 5 years, you will make bank. I was right. That was exactly what happened. And everybody who had free capital, who did that, made extraordinary gains in the marketplace. That is a fact. It's a historical fact. Look back at the stock markets, look at the stock exchanges, you will see this, okay? That's exactly what's happening today. The same companies that all have cash are sitting around, they're watching the Biden administration make a deeper, more long-lasting, more punishing economy, recession, and they're saying, hey, we're just going to buy. We're just going to buy everything and wait 5 years, and then they'll sell everything. It's a smart plan. I cannot fault them for that. Let's see. Some say that we're looking at 25% in terms of inflation. I think that's a little too high. I don't think we'll get to 25%. I do believe we are going to be 15 to 18, maybe 20%. Yeah, I do believe that's going to happen. Let's see. Cool Roy mentions that Democrats never let us win wars anymore. Well, you know what? It's one thing to say that we're not winning a war. It's another thing when we are running away from wars. I'm going to get to Afghanistan very shortly. And it's another thing to say we're funding a war forever for no reason. Why are we spending money in the Ukraine? I say it again. Why are we spending our money there? It's like spending money on gender studies. Why am I spending money on gender studies? It helps no one. It has no benefit. Why are we wasting our money that way? The same thing I would say about spending money on wars in the Ukraine. Why are we spending our money that way? It has no benefit for us. Cut the losses, stop giving them money. Not because I like Putin, not because I want to see Russia expand into the Soviet Union again. I absolutely do not. But there is no gain here. There is no winning scenario. Again, don't believe me? Ask Josh Riley. Ask Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Kirsten Gillibrand, Jerry Nadler, AOC, Cori Bush, Annie Presley, Adam Schiff, Eric Swalwell. Go around the members of Congress and ask them, what's our benefit? What are we getting out of this? The reason why no one in the news media will ask the question is because there is no answer. And therefore, it would cost them votes, which is why they won't ask. Let me see, I'm catching up here. Cool Roy says that the Democrats are using the Ukraine to pretend like they're the good guys saving the free world. Yeah, they want you to feel like, oh, well, we're saving the free world. Well, you know what? You can't say it's the free world when we have the state of Illinois taking away people's property and treating them like criminals without ever having a crime or a trial. So yeah, they can't say they're saving the world, the free world, when they are punishing free citizens. And we need to say these things. Cool Roy mentions that say goodbye to your 11.3% Social Security raise in 2023. Come on, Social Security is going to go bankrupt very shortly. We just don't have the money for it. Dow says being made a criminal in the absence of a crime creates a path of logic for the law-abiding to choose to actually become criminals if they are punished either way, which makes sense. If you're going to get punished no matter what you do, why follow a law? This is how we create anarchy. I mean, laws are there because if you don't follow the law, you get punished. This is logical, which is why we see crime going up in, 22 different major cities across this nation. Austin, Boulder, Colorado, Portland, Seattle, name the cities, the major cities. Crime's going up. Why? Because there is no reason not to. Especially in California. You can steal $1,000 worth of goods. You can steal $999 repeatedly. You can walk into a store, steal $999 worth of goods, walk out the store. You will not be punished. Go to another store right next door, take out $999 of goods, walk out the store. You're okay. You could go down a block, go to 10 different stores, take out $999 worth of stuff. You have like $10,000 of stolen goods. You will not be arrested. How does that stop crime? And we know it doesn't work because in San Francisco, 19 CVSs have closed since they came up with this brilliant reform to criminal justice that you can commit the crime as long as it's less than $1,000. That is stupid and it doesn't work. Stop having social experiments on the public. We are not guinea pigs. We're American citizens. Stop this. Let me go on. Dow says that Americans need to en masse defund the government and form a parallel economy. Well, that's what a lot of people thought that Bitcoin and all of the cryptocurrencies would be. Excuse me. Here's the problem with that, Dow. To create a parallel economy, and this is what people with crypto are learning very quickly, you need to have an asset. Some kind of asset beyond, I believe it's worth money. Bitcoin and all the crypto, in my opinion, and I don't understand crypto perfectly, I admit that right up front. I have no faith in it. Why? There is no underlying asset. When I buy a stock, if that company goes bankrupt, I get a brick. It may not be worth a whole lot. It may be worth 10 cents on the dollar, but I get something. There is an asset. That value is based on that asset. To be able to defund the government and form a parallel economy, you need new assets that aren't already absorbed by the government. We can't use oil as a leverage. The government is in control of the oil because they tax it, they control it through leases and regulations. You can't get it from oil or gas or coal. You can't get it from property. The government owns it. You buy it from the government. Where do you get the assets? So that's the big problem there. User says we could use seashells or bottle caps as fiat. You could, but again, that turns it into what we're seeing with crypto. So I don't find that to be useful. Tina mentions that it's hard for people to disagree when you're on the spot. You know what? After the fact, you know what? A lot of them will disagree after the fact. Tina says it doesn't matter if Joe Biden has the power, this will not be thrown out until after the election. That's correct. Part of this is he's doing this to buy votes. I think that is the most obvious answer anyone can point to. The only reason why we've done this is for votes. So Democrats have something. And because every student who just got told, you're not going, they took away $20,000 worth of your debt. If they stay in power, they have a reason to go out and vote. It didn't work with abortion. It didn't work with gun control. But this might work. this might get Democrats to come out and vote because it's their money. The problem is over 51% of the nation, according to polls so far, are going, I don't want to pay for your gender studies degree. No, it's not my debt. I didn't make that choice. I don't want to be responsible for your decisions. And so there is that. So I don't know if it works for him as well as he thinks. Little Dipper, hello. Little Dipper says, great channel, new subscriber. Thank you. We appreciate you. Little Dipper says, SNAP EBT, which is food stamps. For those of us who are older, we would call it food stamps, is down US wide. Well, here's a problem. And here's the thing about food stamps that again, news media isn't talking to you. This is the exact same thing that we saw happen under the Obama stimulus. It is the exact same thing that we saw under the Biden administration and that stimulus check. Here's what happened. You got money. If you are getting I should mention this, I should have mentioned it before. If your college loan is, say, $10,000, $20,000, doesn't matter what the amount is, you just got money. The government forgave your loan. That counts as income. So whatever your income was, it just got increased by $10,000 or $20,000. You owe taxes on that money. Now, for people who are poor, say you got $5,000, you went to a community college, you got a degree, you got your bachelor's in something, you spent $5,000, $7,000 at a local community college. You're making, I don't know, $30,000 a year. You just got an extra $10,000 because you're not paying off your loan. You just bumped yourself into a new tax bracket. And that means you no longer qualify for the food stamps or the government aid you were getting before. By the way, roughly 50%, roughly about 48% of this nation, 48 to 55% of the nation receives government aid every year. Somewhere between 48 to 55% of the nation is getting some form of government aid every year. And so all these people who just got this money, 44 million people, we're told, they just got bumped into a new tax bracket. And a bunch of those people were part of the half the nation that is getting government aid. They no longer qualify. It's the same thing that happened with Obamacare. When we got the Obamacare done, 144,000 people lost their food stamps. 144,000 families lost their food stamps because of Obamacare, because they were no longer, their income was beyond the threshold. So this is why you're seeing SNAP benefits go down. People aren't being told this. They aren't being told that when you pay your taxes in 2023, you're going to have taxes on this money. And they're not being told that you're going to lose government aid on this. Remember when they came up with the brilliant idea of, because I know no one's been telling people about this, but remember when they had the brilliant idea to have the minimum wage of $15 an hour, and in New York City and Manhattan, to be the fry guy, to flip burgers and make fries, you were getting paid $15 an hour. And what they found, this is a fact, is that people worked less when they were getting paid more. Now, the reason why that happened, and this is exactly what happened in Seattle and happened in Boulder, Colorado, and it happened in Manhattan. It's happened in every city, every place where they have artificially increased the minimum wage to $15 an hour. We have seen that people work less even though they're getting paid more. It's because they don't get government benefits. If they actually work the same number of hours at that higher rate, they wouldn't get government benefits. Even as they pay more in taxes, they would actually lose money. So rather than lose money, they work fewer hours, so they make the same amount essentially, and they get those same government benefits. So these are the reasons why SNAP benefits are down across the nation. Again, the major news media will not take the time to have this conversation with you. I am. And everything is documented on what I'm speaking about. You want to see the numbers for, and I've done this. I've done the studies. I've gone through this before. In Manhattan, we have seen what has happened in Manhattan, in Portland, in Boulder, Colorado, when you increase the minimum wage to $15 an hour. And the reasons why people are doing it, as they have told us, polls have been done, interviews have been done on this, it's to maintain their government status. Same thing that's happening here. People are going to get bumped up into a new category, and that means they're going to lose their benefits. And that's why you're seeing SNAP go down. But don't think that that's going to help people, because you didn't just get new money. It's just your debt's gone, but you owe taxes on it. That's going to be a problem. That's going to be a big problem. All right, let's talk about Afghanistan, folks. I know it's a hard cut. And give me a second here. I really want to talk about this, and I have been talking about this pretty much every week since a year ago. Since September 1st, I have been talking, actually before that, it's been a year that I have been talking about the fact that there are American citizens who have been abandoned, thrown to the wolves, just tossed aside. And that's a big deal. By the way, before I switch, and this comes from the BBC. See, one of the best ways to find out about all this stuff we're talking about with the student loans, go look at the international news, because the U.S. news has a bias and they want this to sound like it's really good. Go to the international news. You will see that this, by the way, is not helping poor people. According to the University of Pennsylvania, it's estimated that under the Biden-Harris plan, 69 to 73%, let's call it rounding off the numbers, 70% of the debt, $10,000 to $20,000, is going to households in the top 60% of incomes in the nation. That means it's going to people who make $60,000 to $75,000 or more across this country. That's to the people who don't need the money. They can afford to pay off their student loans. But we should pay it off. Because if you don't, well, then you're just evil. That's just crazy. And I know we haven't gotten to it yet. Of course, we could talk about Mar-a-Lago and what happened with Trump and the affidavit and the fact that this is just absolutely a violation of law meant to punish him, character assassination. But before I get to that, I want to go over. Oh, wait a minute. We got a call coming in. Hello, and thank you for calling into the program. This is No Soundbites Allowed. May I ask who's speaking? Can you hear me there? Go ahead. Oh, wait a minute. Say something now.
Now I'm speaking?
Yeah, it's my fault. I forgot to turn up the volume. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I just want to make sure you can hear me. Yeah, so, student loan debt, obviously, you're talking about that. I actually just came into your, program a little late. I was, running around today, but,
sure.
one of the things that just has been concerning me is just the disconnect between, the, monetary policies of our entire government and the fact that people just, I think there's a disconnect between the inflation and the spending and the excess money that's being pumped. And I don't know, you probably already mentioned this, but obviously when they decided to just cancel a massive amount of money among people, you said too, are in the higher echelon bracket, if they get an extra $10,000 or $20,000, and what are these people going to do? I mean, they can go out and buy a new car. We already got astronomical, car prices going through the roof as we speak right now, And so as soon as they basically realize they don't have to pay an extra $100, $200 a month, they can go throw that into a car payment, exacerbating the current problem that we already have in the car market. And I know I spoke to you before about this, where I was saying that, well, I have a feeling that there's going to be a massive plummet, in car values, and there's going to be this bubble. Well, well, the thing is that, I think I'm wrong at this point, because I wasn't intending on basically all this infusion of money coming to the demographic of people who are now basically going to take those cars and actually buy them now, and so it's just going to perpetuate this, this. And like I said, in my mind, I said, well, okay, there's a bubble. Then all of a sudden, what does the Biden administration do? He goes and he just throws my entire theory right out the window by, alleviating all this debt. And I'm just like, my God, it's insane,
Yeah, but
and
it just, I only want to say, he's not alleviating the debt. He just transferred who's paying it. And with interest, it's even more expensive now than if it were just left with the students.
No, and that point is doubled down, because what happened was, as soon as the Fed, heard the fact that Biden was going to be doing this, they were like, great, so you just actually pushed more money into it. So what does the Fed have to do? The Fed has to increase interest rates even more. So all those people who are basically struggling paycheck to paycheck already, and then the poorest people who have credit card debt, they're now going to have to borrow even more, because, the prices are going up. And on top of that is that their interest rate on that credit card debt now is going up. And why it's going up? Because you're paying more on your credit cards, because Joe Biden decided to give a bunch of freaking, elite college students, pay off. No, they didn't know. They basically made you pay off, their debt. And it's just like, I'm just like, man, God, I think the thing that drives me the most nuts is because I'm a person who connects the damn dots immediately and going, this is absurd. How can anybody, elect, a party, in these midterms that is doing this sort of behavior, I mean, how could people think, oh yeah, you know what, he just, bribed a bunch of people to vote for him in this election, and we're going to let him get away with that, we're going to nominate every single one of these Democrats. And the crazy thing is too, is I'm looking, even in New York State locally, how people are trying to justify, this big expenditure. And I'm just like, you got to be kidding me. And the only reason they can be getting away with this is because the American people are, I guess, what we've talked about many times. Maybe, these numbers are just too complicated. Economics is, far beyond the reach of most Americans. And that's why, we're getting these policies. Well, I hate to say, that's true.
But it is true, because when I was talking to lead up to this, I was talking about the interest rates and the economy, and the fact that there's Richard Vedder, a well-known 55-year economist who agrees with everything I've laid out in terms of the economy and the economics, and people droned out it because it's numbers. The easiest way I can explain it to everyone, just to restate it, is it's not just you're going to pay, interest rates are going up. You're going to have less money in your IRA for your retirement. You're going to pay more on your credit cards, on your car loans, on your mortgages, and everything in the stores, because inflation is increasing, not reducing. It's going to last longer, not shorter. This is going to hurt everyone. Everyone that's involved in this.
It frustrates me so much, because this is what we were talking about before, is that the disconnect between the Democrats' policies and what's actually being projected, and even during this election, because, I was saying, back months ago, I said, look, Mike, I see it coming, in the gas prices. I think what's going to happen is we're going to see a significant decrease compared to how, high gas prices are, and then they're going to basically be saying, hey, bragging about, hey, look at this stuff is going down at such a rapid rate. I'm like, compared to what, but it's just, but it's frustrating, because the thing is, that's what they're selling. And the thing is that when I look, at some of the people who are actually buying that and saying, well, yeah, that makes sense. Things are getting cheaper. They are going to be. And the thing is that the way that this impact is going to be felt, especially with the student loans, it's going to be felt after the election. All this stuff is going to be next year. And what's going to happen is that if the Republicans do wipe out, Democrats, when it comes to the first quarter, the first quarter that will happen after, the election, Democrats will be going, hey, look, you know what? You voted all these Republicans in. We had all these policies that were going to help Americans, and guess what you did? You voted for them, and that's why things are so bad now. Everything was perfect, prior. Gas prices were low. Inflation actually, it had peaked. It did peak. They're going to say, look at that last reading, before, the election that we had, it peaked, and then now all of a sudden you voted for the wrong people, and that's why things are, bent out of shape, And are they going to get away with it? Are they going to get away with it, Mike?
The answer is, and I know Little Dipper has asked about this, a few people have asked, is that going to happen? The answer is yes. Yes, it is. They're going to get away with it because this is meant to get to November 8th. This is a tactic, even the BBC admitted, this is an election tactic. This is buying votes. This isn't supposed to be policy that's going to work. It's not supposed to be effective. It's not. There is nothing about this that is supposed to be beneficial beyond getting votes. That is the only purpose for this. Democrats have nothing. Progressives have nothing to sign their hats on and say, hey, this is what we did that actually helped you. Not Afghanistan and the people who are lost there, not the people who have been abandoned in the Ukraine. I will be getting to both of those stories. It's not international policy, world tensions, global terror, United States terror, the southern border, healthcare, you name it. They have failed on every single target. This is the only thing they have that's actually a positive. This is it. The only other thing they tried was abortion, and roughly about 60% of the nation disagree with late-term abortion. So they lost there. The only thing they got is this, free money.
Yeah, and then, even with their bill they passed, whatever the anti-inflation bill or whatever what they do, they renamed it.
Inflation reduction, it's the Inflation Reduction Act, which does not reduce, it actually increases inflation.
Yeah, and so what they're doing, they're relabeling it as a green, energy one. All the media now is kind of like doubling around going, well, you know what? Since this really has been proven, disproven, we'll just continue to just call it what it actually is, but we're doing the right thing, by making, the future, better for other people, because the environment will be better, irregardless of how much, suffering is going to be happening in the world because of our, inflationary economic policies, which, lead to mass starvation around the globe. So, I don't know. It's frustrating. I mean, there's just a number of these issues that are coming out, and I'm just watching, them project and getting away with murder. And, it's funny. I was just recently reading, a book by Newt Gingrich, and I think I've talked to you before, and I was thinking, what, this time around, I think Republicans have to have an aggressive, grouping, within the House to actually have a plan like, Newt Gingrich did in the past, And it was interesting because, when he was talking in this new book that he was talking about what issues to bring to the American people. And he was saying, well, you want to focus on the ones that have, high appeal, like the 70% appeal. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, the biggest problem is that when you focus on those things, because he even says you want to educate and help, Americans understand exactly, your policies are. But I think that there's policies that people, they might not be a winning 70%, but the thing is once they're explained to Americans, they'd have, a vast, overwhelming, number of Americans actually, agreeing with that specific policy. But it's just a matter of being able to, get your message out. And that's probably another thing you've already talked on the show is that now when you have, Facebook and, the social medias pretty much being, shut down. So certain voices can't be, projected, especially when, now the FBI is dictating what could be said, by Facebook, to the American people, or what you can actually say, on Facebook to the American people, because the FBI is going to shut you down now. It's just like what I'm saying is that conversations and persuasion is what Newt Gingrich is basically saying to do. And I just feel that, every time, there's a good conversation to be had, the government takes another step forward to basically silence, speech. Or now we even have, we have the FBI, shutting down our speech, proven to shut down speech, so you can actually, say what you want to on your program. You're being censored not just by Facebook. It's not even Facebook anymore. It's the FBI being controlled by, the whatever the administration, which is in power,
And we're going to see that. And we're going to see that. I mean, they've already done it with mask mandates. They've done that with the pandemic medications. even though they're lifting some of those restrictions right now. But they've gone into the next phase, which is they're saying, okay, they have to fortify the 2022 election again, like they fortified the 2020 election. Of course, the most safest, secure election that has ever existed. No one has ever had a question about it, besides the courts in Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, and many others. But that's secondary. You can't question that. But like I said earlier in the program, and I'm putting it on the screen again, it is the press secretary for the United States, Jean-Pierre, has said that if you disagree, if you have an America First attitude, you are a fascist, and you are the problem. You are the bad guys because you're taking away people's rights as they are busy destroying our economy and our lifestyle and our Constitution. That's terrifying to me.
Yeah, I mean, the villainization, of people who basically just speaking out, against poor policy. And now, as we know, is just like, what is she going to do? Is that the Biden administration now taking actions, to silence, people from saying that? And, I don't even, you probably already mentioned that as well, too, is just that I don't know how many Democrats were agreeing, with these different policies, of the weaponization of the FBI. And they're like, well, they're fine with the weaponization of the FBI, and crushing of First Amendment, rights, because the fact is that, sometimes you have to destroy the Constitution, to protect the entire country. And that's the attitude that they're having, towards every single policy that they want to implement,
We've seen this. I mean, it was appointed Governor Kathy Hochul before she said that if you're a Republican, get out of New York, kind of like Andrew Cuomo. But no, before that, she already said that she needs to silence people on the internet, that they need more censorship because that's somehow going to make you safer, somehow. And that's crazy. And meanwhile, all of this is here to distract people from the fact that we have the Iran nuclear deal that's going on. That's about to happen. Israel is losing their mind, as well as Saudi Arabia and the rest of the Middle East. They're losing their minds because we are about to fund global terror through the Iran nuclear deal again, just like John Kerry admitted in 2016 on CNBC, January of 2016 on CNBC. We're going to fund global terror again, and Iran is still going to make a nuclear weapon, but we're talking about this right now. The Mossad has already said that we're doing this just for votes. Again, this is just to say, hey, we did something to make people safe. And the Mossad is saying, you're doing this for votes. You're going to increase global terror for votes. This is a bad idea. At the meantime, we know, and I want to get into this. I want to ask your opinion about this, Jason.
Sure.
How many Americans, let me bring this back on screen. How many Americans are in Afghanistan right now?
How many are in Afghanistan right now?
Yes.
I have actually no idea.
Okay. Let me ask this. How many Americans did we leave in Afghanistan? Do you remember what Joe Biden said?
Well, I mean, he was saying that all Americans that wanted to get out got out.
Well, no, he didn't say that. Well, yeah, actually, he did say that. He said every American that wanted to get out, which is what American wants to stay in the middle of a terrorist nation that is dedicated with 3 different terrorist groups, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and Taliban, that all want to kill Americans. Yeah, because people want to stay there. That makes a whole lot of sense. That's like being a blood and saying you want to hang out in the Crip neighborhood. That's just stupid. No one does that. But so do you remember? He said back, and this is, and I want to show this on the screen. This is from the State Department. And this was their announcement on September 1st of 2021. And the State Department said they believe there are between 100 and 200 Americans who remain in Afghanistan who may have some interest in leaving. And the Secretary is leading our diplomatic efforts to ensure safe passage for them and any Afghan partners and foreign nationals who still want to leave Afghanistan. That's the key word. So 100 to 200 Americans wanted to leave, and we left them. That's bad. Except we know for a fact 800 Americans were in Afghanistan that wanted to leave and couldn't get out. This is according to Politico. This came out on August 14th. We know that the actual number is somewhere in the thousands, and the Biden-Harris administration knew about this ahead of time, as reported by Politico again. Where is this? I want to make sure I get this. Give me 1 second, folks. Sorry. Here it is. According to General Keith McKenzie, the former chief of the U.S. Central Command, has already stated that the Biden administration knew and was warned that they were leaving Americans in Afghanistan ahead of time and that the Taliban would take over, and they knew it, and they ran away anyway. They ran away anyway, leaving hundreds of Americans, and according to the Afghan embassy, the United States Afghanistan embassy, as reported on June 8th of 2022, and I quote again, the exact number of Americans that are making efforts to leave Afghanistan still remains unknown. President Biden claims that the majority of Americans that wanted to leave had already been evacuated, with about 100 to 200 who still intend to leave the country. They stopped talking about this back in January. They have consistently said it's 100 people. We know that it's over 800, possibly 1,000, and they have no clue how many people are still there a year later. Let me ask you, does that make you feel safer, more confident in the United States government, or less?
You know, as far as feeling, I mean, this is, I think, a part of the problems that, you know, we even come into when it comes to just dealing with economic numbers. You know, tell me a number of people that are there, or, you know, what's happening. You know, it's hard to put in perspective. I mean, I guess to some degree, you're telling me, well, who would want to stay there? Well, the question is that, you know, why wouldn't somebody want to stay there? What are they doing to Americans, you know, that stay? You know, what is happening to the people, you know, since the United States pulled out, you know?
I can't answer part of that. This is what I can answer, because this is what the international media has been able to find out. Americans are in hiding. We know that the women are not able to work. We know that girls are no longer able to learn how to read. That's what we know is happening. We know that gays are being killed. We know these things are happening. That's all we know. Because Taliban has no official connection to the American government. We don't have relations with them. We don't speak with them on a regular basis. And we only find out stuff from individuals who are able to get into the country and escape back out. And the news media isn't covering it. We don't know what's going on.
Yeah, and it's hard, because the thing is if we don't know what's happening, you know, obviously those tragic things that you just mentioned about women, you know, gays, or, you know, anybody who's being, you know, persecuted, you know, by the Taliban, you know, that's a horrific thing, you know. But I think too is that, you know, it's hard, because the thing is that at what cost? Because the thing is that the thing that was always told to the Americans is like, why are the Americans, you know, bleeding, you know, for, you know, other people? You know, why are we there? What are we doing there? What, you know? Or the question is too is that, you know, and then the other thing too is they have dehumanized, you know, Americans who are actually still there, and they just said, well, if you didn't get out, guess what? You are not an American basically anymore. You are them.
No, they did worse. In my opinion, they did far worse. They didn't just make them objects; they made them non-existent. When was the last time you heard the major media? And I'm asking this for anyone who's watching the program. Please tell me if I'm wrong here. The last time that the major news media focused on this, when I say focus, I mean you saw 3 minutes on CNN or MSNBC or ABC, CBS, New York Times came out, and they had a national discussion about the Americans in Afghanistan, and heard the White House talk about people in Afghanistan. The last time they did that was the second week of January of 2022. That was the last time, and you know what they said then? 98 Americans were remaining in Afghanistan. That was in January. That was the last thing that they said, and they stopped mentioning the word Afghanistan, and pretty much all US-based news stories stopped talking about Afghanistan at all. If anyone knows of data that it says I'm wrong on this, I'd be happy to hear it. And again, how does that make you feel?
It makes me feel frustrated, and part of it too. Even when I see more conservative, news media and commentary on the right, the fact is that they haven't really mentioned it much either. But I think part of the fact is why they haven't is because the Biden administration just continues to bury more crap, on top of it, and it's just like there's just so much other stuff to cover. It's just like since that issue had happened, how many other things have the Biden administration got involved with, basically, that have done detrimental harm to the United States' security and its economy? But
I disagree. I disagree. There, in my opinion, and this is my opinion, there is nothing more important than the United States government defending and protecting the American people around the world. That is the entire purpose of why we have government. Any government, whether you could be from the United Kingdom, you could be from China, you could be from Venezuela, you can be from Ghana. It doesn't matter what country. The purpose of government is to protect you, period, especially if you're out of the nation. That is why they exist. And if a government does not care so much that you no longer exist, they have failed their job. There is nothing worse that you can do. Because if they can do that to the people in Afghanistan, there is no American that they can say no longer exists. And that's how you get the Uyghurs in China.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. What I'm saying is when they're burying things, on top of just, more bad policy, it's just like, well, what about, all the Americans, that were, assisting and helping out, on a humanitarian basis, individuals in Ukraine.
Most of them had to leave. Most of those are already out. They had to run away. When we did the major evacuation, almost all those groups left, which is why people in Afghanistan right now are starving. The medical conditions are abhorrent. The economy is collapsing because almost all the international aid left. They ran away when the United States ran.
Yeah. So they basically just, bailed at the exact same time.
Yes.
The United States did. Yeah. And so, it's like I said, it's difficult because there's just so many different, like you're mentioning the Iranian situation and what's transpiring there. And that is honestly, they're putting, the Iranians are continually putting hits out on our presidential, on Trump, I know, and his family, on other, politicians as well, too. And it's just like, we're negotiating with terrorists and, I don't know. It's just, it's mind boggling,
It is, but, and here's something, if it is correct, according to various sources, Joe Biden, in the next roughly 3 days, is going to roll out a celebration, essentially, that to celebrate the greatest rescue of Americans in history. It is going to be a celebration of the Great American Rescue. That's what he's going to call this, and that is what they're going to try and promote over this week as we go forward. When everyone starts talking about the anniversary, they're going to try and promote this was a great rescue. And they are going to ignore that there are thousands of Americans that are still there. They're going to ignore that for the last year, the Biden-Harris administration has lied. Not misspoken, not misquoted, not misunderstood. They have lied to the American people's face repeatedly, and they're going to gloss that all over. To me, there is nothing more damaging. That is a government that has completely collapsed and doesn't care about, and if they don't care about people, they're throwing people away. And this week, we just heard I don't know a lot of people know this. Did you know that according to U.S. State Department, Americans were told to leave the Ukraine this week? It was August 23rd. Did you know that?
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was mentioning before about the situation with the Ukrainians, because we got Americans in Ukraine, and that's what is being kind of like dumped on top of what's going on in
Do you know how many we
Afghanistan.
have? Do you know how many we have in Afghanistan? Ukraine right now?
I don't know the numbers. No.
10 to 20,000, including children.
Yeah, it's pretty significant.
And you know what the American policy is on that? Because I know everyone's forgotten. According to Joe Biden in his conversation in February with Lester Holt, they're on their own.
Yeah, they should have gotten out. That's basically what he was saying. So like I said, the humanitarian aid that was given, by Americans in Ukraine, those people are now, left and stuck in there, the same way that the people who are still stuck in Afghanistan, are stuck. And yeah, they're really worried that, now they're saying that Russia is going to, up something that's going to, be very detrimental. Who knows what they're going to do? I mean, it's good. Yeah, I don't know. If the State Department's saying, hey, you know what, they're going to go, are they going to drop a nuke? I mean, is that what they're implying? I don't know. I mean, it's who knows?
It's incredible. And I can't believe that this is so suppressed and the news media is so biased that they won't even mention this, that this is not a subject on the anniversary when we have tens of thousands of Americans in Ukraine right now that are going to face the same kind of problem, that we have 200 Americans in China that are facing this same problem, that we are disappearing Americans. And if we can do that to them overseas, how long is it until we start doing it to Americans here? That's a terrifying question, I think.
I guess it depends on your point of view, I mean, disappearing of people. I mean, I guess Andrew Cuomo may have been disappearing the elderly, during his administration there, but
no, he straight out killed them. And that's bad, and no doubt that man needs to be in jail for that. But we're talking about it's one thing to say that you killed someone. You can grieve for that person. You can bury that person. I think it's terrifying when you've made them non-existent. That's people, that's like our homeless. They're still there. They're still suffering. And our government is purposefully making them suffer without any reason other than, will it get me votes? If I mention them, it won't get me votes. Same reason why Nancy Pelosi won't talk about the people who are crapping on the streets. It's exactly the reason why there was a whole cover-up by Andrew Cuomo and Kathy Hochul to hide the 16,000 people that died in the nursing homes that in Michigan, Governor Whitmer decided not to mention the 4,000 people that died in there. In California, there was, I believe it was 6,000 people that died in nursing homes there that Gavin Newsom won't mention. This is what we get. I think it's the same thing. These are people who no longer count. They're no longer important because of votes, and they just disappeared. Some of them are dead. Some of them are just suffering. My God, that is evil, I think.
No, it is evil. I mean, they don't care, about what, you do as long as you check a box of what you are. Because, I mean, look at what are, Assistant Health Secretary there, what is it, Rachel Levine, goes and takes, own mother out of, the home that is infested with COVID to try to protect her. And, that's the individual who now is, pushing policy, on our, on our healthcare system. It's like, oh, good enough for, everybody else, but not good enough for your mother, I take it. Huh, got it. Part of the elite class, And that individual obviously just had to check a box, for, their position. And, that's what you get. But it's, like I said, I see, like I said, when I was reading that book, with Newt Gingrich, and when I think about too, is even the past, when Newt Gingrich, had done, the contract with America, and then they went with Bill Clinton, and pretty much, honestly, they really backed him in a corner, and then they, passed different legislation that actually, improved our economy, in the long haul. But today, I kind of question. I mean, we have our information is all, pushed out through social media. And then when you have a weaponized, FBI, and now you're going to have a super, weaponized, IRS, because it's going to be twice the size that it was, and so, God forbid you even, remotely decide to run for political office. I mean, you're going to have probably like 12 of those agents going through every single thing, in the book, and trying to figure out what you didn't pay or what you did, or, hey, they'll probably even, have you tied down in an audit, if you actually overpaid them. They'd be like, you know what, you overpaid us, we're going to have to take, 6 hours, or 3 days of your time, to look this over so we can give you your money back, Either way,
It's a form of coercion. It is no different than what we saw in Illinois, where we saw, and I don't know if you were watching the program at the time, where they decided to have checks, compliance checks, and suddenly decided that out of 1,027 people, 300 people were suddenly and inexplicably dangerous to themselves and the public, with no charges, with no crimes, and decided to take their Second Amendment rights and their property away without a trial.
So they red flagged them, basically.
Oh, yeah, they red flagged them and got paid by the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act. They got paid for it.
Yeah. I mean, bottom line, and that's the thing too, is that when you hear the rhetoric from the left, and they're saying, well, look if anybody votes for Trump, then they're January 6th. Anybody who's January 6th should not have a firearm. So all they have to do is say, hey, look I hate to say this, but you voted for Trump, you don't get your Second Amendment rights. We're red flagging you because you're a January 6er, and that's how they play the game. And it's as simple as that, without any sort of due process. That's the way the system works.
Yeah, it's terrifying. Let me ask this. We've been on for a little while, and of course, I always appreciate speaking with you, Jason. I thank you for calling in. You're a great audience member, and I love it when you call because we get to talk about so many things. Was there anything else you wanted to mention before I open up? Because there may be others who want to talk about this subject.
No. Like I said, I kind of missed your program, most of it today. But obviously there's always something to talk about. So just wanted to rant about something.
No, that was perfectly. That's what the program's for, So I'm glad that you took advantage of it. All right, let me let you go. Obviously, we still got a little bit more to talk about in the program, and I'm looking forward to seeing your comments as we go along. Okay.
All right. Yep. Have a good one. Bye.
All right. And folks, as you can see, just like Jason, you too can call in at any time and speak with us on the channel. The phone line is active, and we always are happy to hear your voices. Whether you agree or disagree, we will respectfully listen to anything you have to say. The only thing we ask for is don't be disrespectful. Don't tell me that, oh, you're just an old man. I know I am. Don't tell me I look ugly. I don't care. Don't tell me that I'm just evil. That's meaningless. Have a reason. Have a discussion with us, and I will listen to you respectfully and hear your point and ask you questions. And I wish I were wrong. I'd like to be wrong on so many things. Please, if there's anyone in the United States government that can tell me how many Americans are in Afghanistan right this second, if there is anyone in the United States government who can tell me what we are doing to get Americans back home, I want to hear that. Tell me we have a plan. I've asked, I've been asking since literally October of 2021. I have well over a half dozen different letters and requests going out to every single major Democrat in Congress, in the New York State government, from the governor on down. I have been asking people in the New York State Assembly, in the New York State Senate. I've asked the governor. I've asked former Congressman Antonio Delgado before he abandoned the New York 19th district. I have asked Joshua Riley, who is a Democrat running for the New York 19th district. I have asked, I've even sent requests to the DOD and to the White House asking what is our plan and how many Americans are in Afghanistan right now. And in a year, I have never gotten an answer. They have avoided the question. They have avoided the conversation. They have avoided the situation. I have multiple contacts throughout Washington, D.C., in every party, Libertarian, Conservative, Republican, Democrat, and yes, even progressives, and no one in the United States government, no one who is an elected official anywhere in this country has been able to give me an answer on how many Americans are in Afghanistan at this moment. That is unacceptable. And if they can do that, if they can just disappear, potentially thousands, up to potentially 9,000, according to the United States Senate International Affairs Committee, it could be as many as 9,000 American citizens may have been disappeared, abandoned, without a second thought, that our news media will not comment. And as I'm seeing people comment in there, Little Dipper and Dow and many others have been saying, and our news media will not bring this up. This is their job. This is the job of the news media, to ask this question and to get an answer. I'm not asking for an answer I like. I'm not answering for the most effective answer. I'm not even asking for the most inefficient answer. I'm asking for an answer, any answer. And the only thing we're getting is, it's somewhere between 100 to 200 people. You've been saying that for a year, and it has never been true. Why is this not a massive question, at the very least, on the anniversary of our abandonment of these American citizens? And if they can do that to people in Afghanistan, and we are in the process of doing that to people in the Ukraine, as I just showed you, the State Department is doing this right now to Americans in the Ukraine. August 23rd, we just told those Americans, figure a way out, get out over the road, figure out some way to get out of Afghanistan. 6 months they have been in a war zone. After being told in February by Joe Biden with Lester Holt on NBC that America, the United States, is not going to come save them. We didn't even bother to spend, and I've done the video on this before, you may recall, it would cost $500,000 to fly one C-130 to get that over into the Ukraine, into Kiev, to pick up every single child. If you don't want to get the adults, we could have got every child, every American citizen child in the Ukraine on a C-130. It would have cost us $500,000. Let's call it at the most $1 million, which is meaningless. We just spent $54 billion on the Ukraine. I think we can afford $1 million to get every single child out of the Ukraine, out of Kiev, and bring them to Germany and be safe, to get them onto an American Air Force base, to get them out of that country. And instead, we have left them there for 6 months, getting bombed and shot at. And now, 6 months later, because we're about to have the anniversary of Afghanistan, so that they don't look bad, they're saying, please get out. If it's up to you. If you don't leave Ukraine, that's your choice. See, we're not at fault. We just told them to get out. Even though the borders are shut down, even though the roads are bombed to hell, even though the bridges don't exist, even though there are tanks shooting at people on a daily basis, you know what? They can just get out. It's their fault. They want to be in a war zone. Is this seriously what we are supposed to believe as American citizens? Is this what we're supposed to accept as being an efficient use of our government? That this is acceptable? That we can just disappear 9,000 of our citizens, that we can just abandon tens of thousands of our citizens and their children in active war zones, giving them up to terrorists around the world. And then we have to wonder, gee, I wonder why global stability is down. I wonder why nobody respects America. Why do they think that Joe Biden is a weak leader and that Democrats have no idea what they are doing? Are we surprised that China is saying this is the perfect time to assert their power in Southeast Asia to take over Taiwan and threaten to South Korea and Japan at the same time? Is there any surprise that we see Iran is winning, that they are getting just about every concession that they want, and they are about to get billions of dollars for the Iran nuclear deal, as the Mossad is telling us directly that this is going to increase global terror and will threaten the lives of Israelis, our only allies in the Middle East, and American citizens across the world. At the same time, by the way, our border is so open and porous, 250,000 illegal aliens that we know of a month are being caught, and we have found at least 6 attempts of terrorists and assassins entering the United States to kill some of our leaders, our political leaders. 6. At least, that we know of, that we caught. Imagine how many we're not catching. And this is all tied back to we ran like scared dogs with our tail between our legs because Joe Biden couldn't listen to his generals and decide not to abandon thousands of Americans and funded and created the first terrorist nation under the Taliban and gave them an entire army. We gave them small arms, we gave them tanks, we gave them helicopters, for God's sakes, and billions of dollars. This is terrifying, folks. Little Dipper asks that they know about the border crisis, but not about the attempted assassinations. Let me clarify. So we know that in the last 2 months, and we have covered this on this channel, there was an assassination attempt against Bush, former President Bush, that there were 4 assassins that entered the United States on the behalf of Al-Qaeda that were attempting to kill him. We know that there were 2 other individuals that had entered the United States to commit acts of terrorism in the United States. They were caught. All of these individuals were caught by the FBI. This is after the fact. So those are the ones that we know of. We also know that ISIS has put out a contract on the lives of John Bolton and former Secretary of State, God, I forget his name. Starts with an M. One of our former secretaries of state and John Bolton, they have contracts on their lives from assassins from ISIS for the amount of $1.3 million combined. Yeah, so yes, Little Dipper, the FBI did their job that we know of. Again, when you're talking about 250,000 people per month that we know of, that we are catching, and we're not investigating these people. Remember, they're doing catch and release. They're taking these people, kind of like what we did with the 17,000 Haiti residents that came into the United States to live under the bridge in Del Rio, Texas. America is so great. By the way, for the people who tell you that America is not great, 17,000 Haitians decided that living under a bridge in Del Rio, Texas was better than living anywhere else in the world. And we let 12,000 of them in because the Biden administration believes in a catch and release plan. that they catch these people and they let them enter the United States. In fact, they have taken children from the border and they have brought them to Tennessee and New York and distributed them around the nation in the middle of the night on special charter flights, special chartered jets that your tax dollars are paying for. And we are distributing them across this nation as illegal immigrants. And all we ask them is, hey, in 3 months, please show up and maybe have an investigation. 3 months from now, please, you illegal alien, someone who's a criminal in the United States, might be an international assassin, we don't know. Please just show up at the local FBI office. Tell us where in the world, where in the United States you happen to be, because we have no idea where they are. And, let us investigate you to decide whether we're going to deport you or not. Are we insane? Again, folks, we have been following this all year long. In fact, we've been following all of these issues since February of to be exact, January 21 of 2021. This isn't new. And yes, you're right, user. And that's not even talking about fentanyl, which is involved in every drug. I recently was talking to someone who smokes marijuana. Because, I know people, human beings, there's lots of them out there. Marijuana is legalized in the New York State. And I was speaking to someone, and they mentioned to me that fentanyl is so invasive in our nation that they are lacing every drug, including marijuana, with fentanyl. That these individuals who were smoking fentanyl had no idea, could have killed them because they had no idea. So yeah, it is like a chemical weapon. They are lacing it in everything. No wonder we have overdoses at all-time record highs. And this is tied to our open southern border, which is tied to the fact that we have a lack of leadership with absolutely no plan. And I ask people, anyone, what is the plan for domestic security? We don't have one. What is the plan for international policy? We don't have one. What is our plan? What is our end game in the Ukraine? We don't have one. What are we doing about the Americans that have been abandoned and disappeared in Afghanistan, in the Ukraine, in China? What are we doing? We don't have a plan. What are we doing to protect South Korea, and Japan from China and its push to take over Taiwan as well as those nations, as it has been asserting? We don't have one. We don't have a plan for anything. We don't even have a plan. Let me ask you a simple question. Little Dipper, you're new to the channel, and you may have seen this somewhere else. Let me ask you, as I ask many people in the audience every time, have you heard what is the official or even unofficial plan for the United States for the food shortage that is coming? I don't know if you know this. The United States, the White House has already announced that there is going to be a food shortage in the United States. We know from the WHO that there is expected to be a 40% food shortage globally. And it has already begun, which is why we see that in Africa and Sri Lanka and other parts of the world, there are riots. In Panama, there are riots right now on food. It's going to get worse. The United States is going to be affected, of course, not as much as Sri Lanka or Panama or many other nations, but we're going to be affected. And you're going to see that instead of 15% of food missing from the grocery stores, it's going to grow to about 25%. And what is the plan? And you're right, there is no plan. Not one announcement has been made, and we have known about the food shortage since February of 2022. Literally 6 months, they have sat on their asses, not coming up with any plan. You know what? I came up with a plan. I'm not the most brilliant man in the world. I'm not. I wish that I was. And my plan was, hey, And I have said this, and everybody who's been a fan of this channel, who has watched me do the live streams, you have heard me say this ad nauseum for the last 9 months. Go out, buy 10% more food every time that you go to the store. Don't panic buy, don't freak out and buy everything. Just buy 10% more, buy more rice, more canned foods, more foods that will last long term, flour as well. Go and do that, preserve some foods, and be prepared. I've been saying that for 9 months. Why couldn't anyone, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Kirsten Gillibrand, Josh Riley, anyone, Donna Lapardo, God forbid Kamala Harris and or Joe Biden, why couldn't they say that to the American people? I'm not telling you it's the most effective plan. I'm not telling you it's the most brilliant plan. But when there is no plan, having that plan is the most effective, efficient thing we could possibly do. Why do I, a small YouTuber, have to come up with a plan for the United States government when they have how many thousands of people who get paid, how many hundreds of thousands of dollars? They can't figure it out, and I at least came up with something. Something is wrong. Either they are that bad, they're that inefficient, they have that little empathy for the American people, they are that obsessed with getting an election won that it doesn't matter how many people are hurt, or they just don't know what they're doing. Neither one is a good situation about America. Which is why I get so upset about this. Because this really matters. I didn't know you were Canadian. Okay. And in Canada, Trudeau, he's doing no better. Many of the things we're talking about are affecting you directly. What happens to America directly impacts Canada, one of our biggest trading partners. So I know that it's definitely affecting your life. And if we don't have a plan and Canada doesn't have a plan, what's happening to North America? Because I can tell you, Mexico, definitely, the plan in Mexico is go to America. That's the Mexican plan. That's not racist. That's the fact. That is a fact of the numbers. Their plan is come to America. Okay, what's the American plan? We don't have one. They think that this isn't going to affect us? Do you know what the price of food? Think about it. We have a shortage. Think about how much the cost of baby formula went up because there was a shortage of baby food formula. And people were selling that black market. And that's still going on at this moment. It's not done. That's continuing to happen. Imagine when it's everything. When you're talking about eggs, meat, pork, when you're talking about lettuce, I don't know, the various vegetables people eat. I don't eat vegetables, so I can't think of them. But whatever vegetable that you like to eat, when it's not there, what do you think's going to happen then? And what about all those poor people who just got poorer because we just paid off a bunch of student loans that are going to increase the national debt? It's going to increase the amount of inflation that we just know as of today, according to the Fed Chairman Powell, that our inflation is going to be into 2023. It's extended and deeper. We know it's going to be longer. We know it's going to be deeper. We know it's not transitory. It's not going away. And it doesn't matter what Joe Biden promised you. He's wrong. And it's so bad that they can't hide it anymore. They can't. They've been trying to hide this until after the November election for as long as they possibly can, and they can't hide it anymore. It's that bad. But I'm supposed to be the bad guy. I'm the bad guy because I'm telling you the truth. I'm showing you the evidence. I'm giving you the evidence from the left. I've gone to the New York Times and I've been looking at information from the White House itself. I'm going to Politico. These are the sources I'm going to. Yahoo News. I'm going Twitter. I've been going to the left to find this. This is what the left is reporting. Imagine what you would find out if you went to some independent international source, which I do look at, that you may have found even more. This is terrifying, folks. Let's see. Little Dipper says that in China, Trudeau is building a climate police facility. A climate police facility? That's 50,000 square feet to enforce climate laws in the prairie. You gotta be kidding me. I honestly didn't know about that. Because climate change is the biggest, most important thing. Don't worry about starving to death. Don't worry about freezing to death this winter. That's not as important as climate change that human beings can't actually do anything about. And will take well over what we have to work for the next 10, 20 years to possibly, maybe influence the global temperature by 1 degree. It would cost 3 times as much money as exists in the world today. And every nation in the world would have to work together on nothing but climate change to be able to change the temperature of the climate by 1 degree that might actually affect us. By the way, since 1958, there has not been a single prediction on climate change that has come true. Not one. There has not been a single scientific theory that has ever been proven correct since 1958 on climate change. Not one. But meanwhile, in Canada, and that means in the United States very shortly, they are building prison camp. They're building facilities to take care of climate change criminals. Seriously, folks, this is terrifying. Zero Hedge is a good source. And by the way, I know Little Dipper, you don't know this, and sometimes some of the other in the audience don't realize. There's a reason why I use almost entirely, 90% of all the sources you will ever see on this channel are left-wing sources. Even though using that, YouTube has already tried to punish our channel. As I mentioned earlier, they tried to shut us down and threatened to delete us for providing you with a link like we've been showing you so that you can find out all the information for yourself. Because I don't want you to believe what I'm saying. I'm showing you the articles. I'm showing you the news. You can read it through and make your own determination. I'm not a progressive. I'm not telling you that you have to believe me because I'm black. I'm not telling you you have to believe me because I said so. I'm telling you, here's the information. This is what I'm concluding from it. And that's why we're providing links. But I use left-leaning links because if any of the critics want to say they cannot question the sources, it's their sources. They cannot question the wording, it's their wording. They cannot discredit this because it's their information. I am just looking at it critically and going and making I'm going down the logical path of consequences of what they have said and what they are doing. I am providing that information to you on the things they don't want you to talk about, they don't want you to think about, that they want you to just obey. Because I don't believe you should just obey. Whether you're in America, Canada, United Kingdom, anywhere around the world, never just obey your government. And you know who told me? You know who gave me the idea that you should not just obey? The 1960s liberals. Because that's what they said. And I grew up in the 70s. And they said, don't just blindly believe, critically think. And today, those very same, the exact same liberals are telling you, obey, don't think, don't even feel, just obey. Hell, it's gotten so bad that they're telling you, when you look at when you watch a movie like or a TV show, let's say it's The Last Jedi, or it's Captain Marvel, it's, I don't know, Star Trek Discovery or She-Hulk. Do you notice they're not only are they telling you you must watch this, they're also telling you what you should feel about watching it. How dare you? You can't watch these things and question that this is all about politics. No, you can't call it politics. This is modernizing the entertainment. We're making it relevant to you in modern world. Wait a minute, Lord of the Rings has nothing to do with the modern world. It doesn't exist on Earth. It doesn't have creatures from Earth. It's a fantasy. It's completely made up. And the guy who made it up gave us all the rules about that world. They're telling, no, we know better. We're going to change everything because it doesn't match our political agenda. And you're going to like it because you have to like it. Otherwise, you are an ist, you're a phobe, you're evil, and probably you're white, probably. And therefore, you are the problem. Not the way that they wrote it, not the way that they filmed it. No, it's you. You don't like She-Hulk. Well, it must be because she's a woman. How about it's because you don't know how to write about lawyers or law drama, which you've already admitted. Maybe it's because you have horrible CGI, which everyone has noticed. Maybe it's because the acting is subpar and the jokes aren't funny. They don't land. They're not good. Maybe that's the problem. No, it's because she's a woman, so therefore you're sexist. Because the show is about feminism. I don't want to see a show about feminism. I'd like to see a show about She-Hulk, because She-Hulk is fun. Why do I want to see a show about feminism when I don't think feminism is good for women? By the way, anyone who doesn't know, I do not believe in feminism. I do not believe in equal rights amendment. I do not believe in affirmative action. Because in every one of those things, and anyone who wants to clip this, they can, please, you can quote me on this. I've said it many times before. All of those things mean that you are not human. You are subhuman. You have no choice. You are a child and you have no independent action. You are so weak that the government must act for you because you have no agency. You can't control your own life. The government has to protect you and, like a child, guide you through your life. That's what ERA, that's what feminism, that's what affirmative action, BLM, Antifa, that's what they mean. You are substandard and the government has to step in and take care of your life. They have to micromanage your life because you can't do it for yourself. That's what they're saying. I do not believe that. I believe you are an individual. You may or may not be successful. You may or may not be brilliant. You may or may not be lots of things. You're an individual. You have the capability for an immense amount of stuff. And if we get the government out of your way, if we get politics, these progressive ideologies out of your way, if we just focus on the Constitution, you will be able to do incredible things, as is the history of the United States. That's what I believe. You don't have to agree. Because I believe in the First Amendment. You don't have to agree. You are not obligated to agree with me. I am a black Republican. I am a black conservative Republican. You don't have to believe me. You can have your own point of view. I only ask you to have an informed point of view, not a parrot, an informed point of view, and you can tell me why you think I'm wrong. I've had these debates with I've had it with progressives and with Democrats and libertarians, even with other Republicans, because that's how I learn, that's how I grow, that's how I test the theories I have and say, hey, does this make sense? Because if it doesn't, maybe something's wrong with the way I'm thinking. But their answers are, if you notice, you will hear these people, the progressives, the major media, these elected officials, they never say, oh, well, this is wrong because. They just say, you're a racist. You're a sexist. You're a transphobe. You're a istophobe. You're just evil. You don't like Islam or something. They attack you on a personal level. They don't actually say, here's why you're wrong. It's like when I say, what's the plan? What's the international policy of the Biden-Harris administration? There is none. Their answer is, well, you're just racist. How am I racist? I'm asking, what's the plan? When I say, what's the plan for feeding the people, whether it's in Canada, the United Kingdom, Germany, Australia, anywhere in the world, what's the plan? I say, oh, well, you just were bought and sold by the Republican Party. That doesn't answer the question. I'm not. But that doesn't answer the question. You're deflecting. You're looking at something. You're attacking my character because you don't have an answer for the question. Maybe instead of trying to attack my motives that you don't know and you're assuming aren't what I'm genuinely telling you, maybe if you spend some time to actually deal with the question, we wouldn't have a food crisis on the verge of the horizon. We wouldn't have tens of thousands of Americans around the world that have been made into non-existent beings and thrown away like the trash. And by the way, this is why the channel, because I say these things, because I'm willing to say these things, that's why this channel is heavily shadow banned, and that's why we're under 1,000 viewers. And that's why I would ask you, if you can, please like, share, and subscribe. If you found this to be entertaining, if you found this to be informative, if you found it to be stimulating in any kind of way, please like, share, subscribe. Share it with other people, subscribe, help us reach more people around the world. That's all we ask for. Our goal is to reach 1,234 subscribers. That's it. Costs everyone nothing. I mean, if you want to donate, fantastic. There's a link on the bottom. But we're just asking you to share this so that we can have more voices, because we can have this conversation. And maybe, I pray, maybe the Young Turks will listen to this, and instead of complaining about whether or not I'm smoking, they go, hey, you know what? Here's a plan to feed everyone during the food crisis. Maybe, just maybe, appointed Governor Hochul or Joe Biden or Nancy Pelosi or Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, I could care less. Somebody sees this and says, hey, yeah, buying 10% more food is a good plan for the food shortage. Do that while you can. I don't care. Quote me on this. Steal the idea. Feed America and the rest of the world. Let people be prepared. Rather than letting them starve on the streets and you go home and these leaders go around saying, see, I did something. Thank you for your vote. Talk to you in 2 years. This is why I'm shadow banned. This is why they're trying to delete this channel. Why they don't want people to hear this. Because you can't just say, well, Mike, you're just evil. Mike, you're just a racist. Mike, you're just a sexist. You can't just say that because it doesn't apply. You're running away from the answer. And yes, hot chicks, I do believe, I agree with you that Joe Biden, Chuck Schumer, all of these politicians that I've been talking about, they just don't care. And there's more than a few Republicans in that list as well. By the way, good to see you, hot chicks. It's incredible, folks. This is incredible, and I cannot tell you how I think this is such a desperate time for the world. I mean, it's a desperate time for the world. Because, I mean, think about this. There's a reason why the Mossad and Israel are telling us, be afraid of Iran. Do not give them billions of dollars that the Biden administration has been trying to get done since day one, January 21st of 2021. And I want you to understand that we have already given massive concessions just to have Iran talk about the deal. We have given them money. We have allowed them access to nuclear materials already. I know it's not in the mainstream news media. They don't want you to think about this. All they want you to think is the deal's done, you're going to be safe. No, you're not. That's a lie. You're not going to be safe. God knows you're going to be in more danger than ever before. Because just like what the Mossad has already said, and I will read this to you. Mossad Chief David Barnea has called an emerging Iran nuclear deal between the Islamic Republic of Iran and world powers a, quote, a strategic disaster, end quote, for Israel in meetings. By the way, if it's a disaster for Israel, that's considered the little devil. That means it's a disaster for America, which is considered the big devil, according to Iran, over the last 45 years. Let's continue. In comments carried by the Hebrew language media Thursday evening, the spy master said the deal is, quote, very bad for Israel, and the U.S. is, quote, is rushing into an accord that is ultimately based on lies, citing Iran's ongoing claim that its nuclear activities are peaceful in nature. This is a nation that at this moment is promising to kill every single American, whether you're a progressive, a Democrat, a libertarian, whether you're part of the Communist Party. They don't care. They don't care if you're white or black. They don't care if you're male or female. They want you dead. Why? Because you do not believe what they believe. You don't believe in their religion. You don't follow the Ayatollah Khomeini. Therefore, you must die. That is what Iran has said for 45 years in a row. They're not changing their mind. Going on, Barnea added that an accord appeared to be inevitable in the light of the need of the U.S. and Iran. Now, that's the really important part they said. That the accord is inevitable. Why is it inevitable? Well, because the Biden-Harris administration has been trying to get this done since January 21st of 2021. This is one of their priorities because they keep giving Iran money and concessions every day. They have been lifting sanctions almost every day since they've gotten to power. That they want this because it's a victory. It's going to win because they get to have votes. Because they get to say they're successful. And they made peace. Just like Obama said in 2015 that this was going to increase the peace in the world. And in 2016, then Secretary John Kerry on CNBC said to the world that the United States government had just funded global terror, that the money that we had provided to Iran was being funneled into the Islamic Revolutionary Corps, and that was being used to fund global terrorism around the world. And there was a net increase in global terrorism. That's what Joe Biden is about to do. That's the truth. That is the consequence of what he's doing. What he's going to sell you on the spin is that you're going to be peace. It's peaceful. The world's more at peace. Yeah, this is going to bring in so much peace that Israel and Saudi Arabia both are trying to work to stop this. They don't even like each other. They hate each other. Saudi Arabia doesn't like Israel, and they're willing to work with Israel to stop Iran from getting the Iran nuclear deal because they can recognize it is a danger to the world. It's not going to make more peace for anyone. And the American news media doesn't want to tell you because you might not vote Democrat if you hear about that. This is crazy. Yes, and you're right, Little Dipper. Weapons have been sent to the Ukraine and are being sold on the black market, and that is adding to terrorism in the world. Just like some of the weapons that we gave to ISIS, to Al-Qaeda, Taliban in Afghanistan, has been sold around the world to increase global terror. And that the fact that there are 3 different terrorist organizations in Afghanistan right now with access to those weapons that they are using to infiltrate the United States and other countries around the world and committing war. In fact, that's why what was that nation? Burkina Faso in Africa. Because of what Joe Biden did, ISIS resurged and went into the middle of Africa, and they committed a coup. And they took over another country. This is why I say global terror is increasing. I know no one's paying attention to what happened to Burkina Faso. Hell, most people don't even know that's a country in Africa. Most people don't even know where it is in Africa. I get it. It's a small country. No one pays attention to it. It doesn't matter. It's that ISIS was emboldened and was funded, and they were able to increase the net global terror in the world. They started a civil war. And now we're going to do this on an even bigger scale with hundreds of billions of dollars? Does that make sense to anyone? Yes, and there have been warnings about the dirty bombs in New York State, New York City in particular, because the world is becoming less safe. It's terrifying, folks. So let's talk. But we're supposed to be distracted by all this. We're not supposed to think about this. What we're supposed to be worried about is whether or not President Trump is going to run for an election in 2024. That's the big deal. We're supposed to remember climate change is the most important thing in the world, and the second most important thing in the world is to stop Donald Trump from running for president in 2024. Those are the two biggest things that are important that you're supposed to think about. And the answer you're supposed to come up with is, yes, climate change is more dangerous than freezing to death in the middle of the winter or starving to death because of global food shortage or being kicked out of your home because there are no jobs. Okay, climate change is more important than any of that. And Donald Trump can't be president because that's dangerous too. That's what they want you to believe. And that's why in Mar-a-Lago, we had the FBI go in with SWAT teams, like a military occupation, to take documents and to threaten Donald Trump because it's meant to destroy his character. Now, let me say right up front, you don't have to like Donald Trump. He's not your best buddy. You're not going to have a beer with him. In fact, you wouldn't have a beer with Obama either, nor would I want to, but you're not going to have a beer with Trump. He's not going to be your best friend. Okay, he's going to have mean tweets, whether he puts it on Twitter or Truth Social or Getter or anywhere else, doesn't matter. He can be an obnoxious man. Fantastic. We all know that's true. That has nothing to do with whether or not he is a good president or a good leader. Nothing. They do not coincide. They do not match. They're not important. These two things can coexist. He can be an obnoxious individual and a fantastic leader. Those two things can exist at the same time. Democrats want you to believe they can't. That you have to feel warm and fuzzy about the guy who's in charge. Guess what? A lot of Democrats felt warm and fuzzy about Joe Biden. Look at what that's got us. The man has nothing but warm and fuzzy feelings because he doesn't have an idea of what's going on. He can't figure out where to sit down without having a flow chart telling him where he's supposed to sit and who he's supposed to talk to. That's a fact. We've seen the photos of that. But we're supposed to think Donald Trump is evil. And because we're supposed to think Donald Trump is evil, then it's okay for the FBI to violate a search warrant, that they could go in and engineer a crisis in our nation, and for the first time ever, to go after a former president for doing what every president has done before him. Now, we saw, according to Politico, on the 26th, 2 days ago, the affidavit was released. And in that affidavit, we know that some information was told to the American people. Why did they do this? Why did they do this? And they did this because he had notes. President Trump wrote down notes, and they wanted to take those notes. Now, it is also mentioned in this article that the Department of Justice had been working with him. They were there in January. They were there in June. They had talked to him in May. They know what documents he had. They knew this already. They already had it. And they want to tell you, according to the Political article and according to the affidavit, that because Donald Trump didn't file all of the documents the way that the FBI wants the documents filed, that this is a crime tantamount with national security. Think about that for a second. Because he didn't file the documents the way that they wanted the documents to be filed, this is tantamount to treason in the eyes of the FBI. And they are investigating Donald Trump for having declassified documents that he hand wrote. These are documents he wrote about by hand. And they said, well, that means we have to stop him and punish him. What are they going to do to you? It's a very important question. If they can go after a former president and say because he didn't file old documents that he wrote by hand the way they wanted him to, in a facility that they wanted to be more secure, they wanted more security than he had. Okay. That's why they're going after him. What are they going to do to you? You don't have Secret Service that are protecting you. You don't have bodyguards that are protecting you. Trump has both. You don't have a mansion. You have an apartment, maybe. Some of us have houses. You can't protect yourself the way he can. He has more lawyers than most people have co-workers at their job. And you're supposed to be able to protect yourself from the FBI better than he is, that the abuse of power that they are doing to him isn't what they're going to do to you. The same people who don't care if you are in Afghanistan or in Ukraine, the same people who don't care about people breaking our law by entering our nation, that want to take your money and give it to someone else because they want votes. This is terrifying, folks. This is terrifying. These are the things that we have to worry about. And again, whether you agree with me or not, we should be able to have this conversation. And social media, the news media, don't want you to have this conversation. They want you to be silent. They want you to obey. They don't want you to think about it. They want you to just go out and vote. This is exactly like George Carlin once said. Remember George Carlin? Fantastic comedian. That they want you just smart enough to be able to run the machines and too dumb to ask a question. That's what they're trying to train you to be. That's what they are training our kids to be right now. Yeah, there's the Bundy Ranch, Waco, Ruby Ridge. There's lots of reasons. And people will say, well, Mike, this is a conspiracy theory. No, it's not. This is the evidence that is in front of us. And I am drawing a logical conclusion based on the evidence in front of us. If you have a better argument, if you have a counter argument that you can make from the evidence that we have in front of us, I would like to hear it. I don't know. All right. So thank you, Little Dipper, for joining us. I look forward to hearing from you again in the future. I always appreciate everyone who's watching the program. We've been going for about 3.5 hours. So we're going to be finishing up shortly. I hope that everyone's found this to be an interesting and informative episode. I always enjoy speaking with you every Sunday. I hope that we'll be able to grow and get more people and be able to hit 1,234, at least 1,000 people. I really hope we can get to there very soon. As always, you are always welcome to call into the program at 607-242-1582 to tell us what you think, to reach us on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter, to leave us your comments and your thoughts. Remember, if we're not here, look for us on BitChute, on Rumble, Odyssey, Minds, Telegram, Getter, Facebook, Twitter, Truth Social, because we want to hear what you have to say, and we're not going to let them silence us. Yes, like the stream. That's always helpful too. Absolutely. By the way, I want to take a moment and to thank a few people. Hang on a second. I know you've heard it before. What difference does it? You make the difference.
Hang on, there it is.
When you watch, chat, tweets, your likes and shares, and your subscription, you make the difference. From across the world, you help us to keep the lights on and the stream alive. You are making the difference to fight the road in the crazy legislation that we see before. We at No Soundbites Allowed. And I want to thank you for everything that you do in helping us reach our goal, and your likes, your tweets, your comments, and your subscriptions to the channel.
In New York State.
We want to thank you from the bottom of our heart. And this is a special thank you to those who have donated to the channel and helped us in all of our efforts. We will strive to make this channel the best that we possibly can, because you deserve no less. Thank you. Not done yet. So, yeah, I just wanted to get that out. And as we get more donations, as we get more people who have donated to the channel and helped us out, I'll increase that list. And hopefully as we get to more subscribers, we'll adjust it there too. But I always want to say thank you to each and every one of you, because you make this possible. I've been doing this for 15 years, and God help me, the only reason why I do this every week is, besides the fact that I think it's important, is because I appreciate each and every one of you. I appreciate that you come here every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time from around the world to add your voices, to add your thoughts about all the issues that are affecting us from everywhere in the world, to lend your insight in your phone calls and your tweets and your chats. I appreciate each and every one of you. You make it worthwhile. That's why I do this every week. That's why we have the J Rest Break, and that's why we have the 1-minute videos, the shorts, and why we have also the roundtables that I'm on with the Rory Sauter Show, with the SMV 500, with the Liberty First Foundation, because it's important to hear what you have to say. I thank you. I value each and every one of you. And I look forward to your comments, both during the live streams, and we look at the comments after the show as well. We look at all your comments every time, whether you agree or disagree, because we appreciate you, not the category you are. I don't care what category you fill. We appreciate you. And I think we need more of that in America. God help us, we're going to try. So with that said, I'm going to let everyone go. I hope that you're going to be safe, that you're going to be around people who love you. And I hope that we can work together to make America better. I'm still going to hold the Biden-Harris administration accountable. What they have done to Americans in Afghanistan is insufferable. It is a crime. And I, at least, even if the rest of the news media just glosses over this, I'm going to keep pressing until these Americans get to come home. Because if it was you, I'd be fighting to get you to come home. I'm fighting to get them to come home. You deserve it. That's what our government's here for. That's what every government's for. And if you want to say that's MAGA, I will correct you. That's ultra MAGA. That's who I am. So, with that said, I thank you. I wish you the best. I'll see you next week, Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, here on No Soundbites Allowed. And have a great day.